Okay, then, Street Talk. And I think Coronation Street must have been listening to me having a bit of a moan last week because I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this week's Coronation Street.
And the show is just for you.
Yes, it did. It's just to make me happy. I thought it was good. I thought it was building up to something better halfway through the week. I'm going to say that today's episode, not quite as strong, but on the whole, enjoyable series of episodes.
Well, you tell me what happened.
Well, we'll say what storyline titles there are. I was in a bit of a conundrum about storyline titles because there were two very obvious puns to make, so I've just combined them for the Tyrone story. Because firstly, he dobs up Ruby, doesn't he? So that's Tyrone Dobbs bit of the story. But then also, Alina kind of proposes to him as well. So Alina pops the question. So just call it Tyrone Dobbs and Alina pops the question is our first storyline title this week. And then we've got a bit more of the Daisy's Chain storyline. A lot of bother is what I'm calling the parking storyline because, like parking lot. I know it's American, but never mind. We had a bit more of the Bistro buyout. Deep impact is what I'm calling the Abby thing about a victim impact statement because that was good. Excellent scene. I think one of the problems I had with Friday's episode actually is that some of the better stories from the first 2 days of the week didn't appear in Fridays, like this one for example, and then some other bits like the Kelly and Jelly and the Vickers and the Chess story appeared this week, and I don't think they necessarily were needed. Well, especially not the Grace and Michael one. I didn't think that was important at all today. But yeah, it was still on the whole a good week. Did you like it this week? Happy with it?
Find out at the end of
Find out what Gemma thoughts as we go. So I'm going to start off with the Tyrone Dobbs story, which I thought was fantastically tense in the build up to the... No, it's not a trial. I was going to say trial. What did they say it was? It was a hearing today. I thought that was fantastic. And there were some nice little twists in this storyline this week.
There were.
So yeah, I know. So it started off with it was a bit of an arty start to the week, wasn't it? Because it had Fizz in her cell.
Oh, I didn't like
and
this.
You could see through the little porthole or whatever you call it to see her.
Porthole.
And she's looking a bit sad. And then they keep the little porthole and show Tyrone in it.
Wouldn't know that you were from the most landlubbiest county in the country, which is Warwickshire.
It was a little hatch, wasn't it? And
actually, you would do because it's not a porthole.
There was there's a little sign on the police cell door, wasn't there, that says make sure you don't leave this open or something. And the police officer just flagrantly walked off and left it open.
I tell you what to do.
So Tyrone's back at home.
I didn't like that. It felt it was really clumsy. Instead of merging from one sort of
enclosure
slit to another, excuse me, it's kind
pre-watershed.
It went from the obscured vision, and then it kind of faded into the full.
Yeah,
I think it should have spied upon him through to a ketchup in a HP sauce bottle. Or something.
I agree. I thought it was okay.
It was okay.
It looked like it was going to be better, but anyway,
it didn't work.
We can't just criticise the directorial choices, otherwise we'll be here all day. So Tyrone, no. I mean, if criticises in say the good things and the bad things, I'm not saying that the directorial choice is bad at all. It's bad enough just talking about the plot.
Like you were saying.
I apologise to any directors that may be listening to this. Excellent job. Tyrone's having a bit of a mope, and Evelyn says, look, you need to get Hope seen to. She needs some proper therapy with her mum by her side, so get yourself sorted, basically.
Yeah, and get Fizz out of prison.
Yeah, Evelyn all week this week, fantastic, as always.
As always.
She doesn't even need saying, but
flawless. You can only imagine such an existence.
So good at being able to stick on both sides. She hasn't made an enemy of Tyrone or Fizz, has she?
No.
She hasn't chosen a side. It's brilliant. Really, anyway. So Fizz is in the police station later with Abney, with Fringe McBangs, saying that she's the one that she's confessed to arson about in Alina's flat, hasn't she? So she says, oh yeah, I took the keys. I knew that I wanted to do something in the flat, but I didn't know what exactly. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. So she's trying to say she did it. She didn't really mean to do anything. Abney is not convinced by this, and Fizz is like, no, honestly, I was just really angry, and I only meant to set fire to the cot. She's basically taking Hope's exact story and just
what I was going to do
as if it was her.
Is put hot sauce in their ketchup.
Oh.
But when I got there, all I had was a box of matches and some nail varnish remover. So I didn't prepare.
So Abney wants a break, and then and so during that, Fizz calls up Tyrone, He doesn't like all this lying. Tyrone, he's being a bit more on the moral side, isn't he? Fizz, I still think, is making a few poor choices this week, and Tyrone just wants to do things right. Well, it was a little bit late for that, to be honest.
Well, exactly.
He kept it in his trousers.
He's the one that's caused all the problems, and now he's like, let's just play it down the line.
Moralising about it. So the girls think that she's at Scylla's, by the way. He wants to talk about this whole situation properly and about how they can get, Hope's some help and everything, but Fizz
not a smart
doesn't
thing to
want
do
to.
on the telephone from prison.
No.
Which is monitored.
It's only police prison. She wants to. She just wants to tell him to make sure that he keeps Alina under control. Make sure Alina doesn't stride off to the police station and say no, it was Hope. At this point I'm wrong. Hope, Alina doesn't realise that Hope was the arsonist, does she? She seems under the impression... No, gosh, yes, she did. I'm forgetting what's happening at the moment. She does know that it was Hope, and she is under the impression that Hope is the one that's banged up, because Tyrone talks about someone at the police station, doesn't he? But then she sees Evelyn taking Ruby and Hope out for a walk, and she's like, what's Tyrone talking about? Who's in jail then? Somebody is. So she takes... Tyrone back to the flat, and he tries to explain that Hope's just a child, she shouldn't be having to go through all this and everything, and she's like, this child could have killed me, and she knows that he wants to get her to keep quiet, basically. Meanwhile, at the police station, a cop comes into the cell and tells Fizz, look, there's some new information that's come to light. You'll just have to wait until Abney is ready to tell you what's happening. So Fizz is like, what's going on here then? And it turns out, and this is my first great twist of the week, that Tyrone was in the police station having a dob. And the way that they framed that was good. They sort of had Abney repeating back, I think, what whoever it was that said, and the camera wasn't, we didn't know who it was, and it kind of slowly pans over to Tyrone. And I was watching that going, I think it's Tyrone. And it was.
I don't know if it's...
Excellent.
It's fairly obvious from context, but dob or dobbing in is slang.
For telling on someone.
For informing on somebody.
Yes, exactly. That's what Jan, that's his speciality, isn't it?
He's a dobber.
So he says that Hope didn't know what she was doing. She was just a little girl, but it was her. It wasn't Fizz. She didn't do it on purpose. Fizz is a good mum. She'd say anything to protect our daughter. And he gets out the evidence. He gets out the dinosaur, the nail varnish remover that Hope used, and sort of explains everything that happened. He still doesn't admit at that point, and this didn't come up again later in the week, that, to the authorities, that Hope is a massive pyro. He was like acting like this is the first time this has ever happened.
I don't know what happened. She set fire to some things, and I wouldn't say that she makes a habit of it.
And he's like, she'll never do it again. But, I mean, we all know that
she probably will.
That's not necessarily true. Depends on they want to get the ratings up again, I suppose. Abney tells Fizz later on what she's learnt, though she doesn't say who it is that's told her. So Fizz now thinks that Alina's come in and Dobbs Hope in. Mm-hmm. And we find out as well that because Hope is 10, she's now at the age of criminal responsibility.
Yes, and this was really interesting. I looked this up because I was thinking, that does seem quite young. But 10 is in fact the age of criminal responsibility, and in England and Wales, but it's different in Scotland. So I was like, okay, Scotland always seems a lot more liberal than the rest of the UK. So probably their age of criminal responsibility is like 14 or something. No, it's 8.
Really?
Apparently they're a bunch of crims up there, and they've got to keep them in control.
Yeah, from a young age. Yeah, no, I didn't realise. I don't think I can't remember what we said on the podcast about it in the past, but
there's two levels. There's the age of criminal responsibility, which is 10, and then I can't remember what the other. There's another sort of step up from that, which I think is 12, where you're like, whoa.
So it kind of makes sense that they brought this aspect of Hope's personality to the forefront again, because I think before I was like, here we go, is she setting fire to something again? But the stakes were definitely raised at this point.
Yes.
And I don't think it's wrong. I mean, I know 10 years, that's the age of criminal responsibility.
Well, a few...
I think 10-year-olds do know what they're doing.
Well, we had it a couple of weeks ago when I said, I'm pretty sure that a 10-year-old knows that something is bad.
I think
And a
there's
few
some
people-
10-year-olds that don't, but there's enough 10-year-olds that absolutely.
Well, there's a few people that disagreed
should
and
take
said that she
responsibility
wouldn't
of
have
their
really
actions.
understood the full ramifications. But I understand that as well, because we're talking about children here, but actually teenagers and young people up to the age of 25, I think, your brain's not fully developed yet.
No.
I don't know how much that really should be taken into consideration when you try to set fire to someone.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. If a 10-year-old could do a lot more serious
At the end of the
harm,
day,
so...
it's sort of irrelevant to this, because she did not know that Alina was there.
No.
Now, if she knew Alina was there, this would be a slightly more interesting and nuanced discussion. But this seems to be an accident.
Just a bit of fire
And
starting.
it doesn't really matter whether she can conceptualise of an unborn child and whether that's murder or not. That's a lot of a much deeper conversation, which luckily was spared because she didn't know that anyone was in the house.
No.
Good.
So Fizzy ends up getting let off with a caution from this as well, because she confessing to this crime.
Oh, yes, we had a comment about this on our Facebook page, because she's actually on parole.
Yeah, after everything that happened with the gun a couple of Christmases ago, when Fizz had the secret gun in the
Well, didn't she not realise that she couldn't...
furniture shop.
Yeah, it's something to do, you're not allowed to sell a gun.
It's something.
I can't
I
remember.
can't remember exactly
Gary
what it
landed her
was.
in it,
but
right?
Yeah, I think so. And she was 2 years suspended sentence. So I think that probably the Weatherfield police should have
They're like, oh, it's a different
treated her a
crime.
bit harsher
It's a
than that.
different
But
crime.
anyway, she's let off with a caution, and they're going to need to talk to Hope tomorrow. Tyrone
Uh-oh.
comes into the police station and finds her. At this point, she's convinced it's Alina
Who's
who was the
done
one that
the
dobbed
dobbing.
Hope in, and Tyrone says, "No, it was me." So they have a big old argument.
Oh, what?
She says, "Oh, it's the ultimate betrayal, Tyrone. I don't want you near me or the kids ever again." She's
Oh,
certainly
no.
singing a different tune by the end of the week. I tell you that. So he goes back home, tells Alina, and she's like, "Oh, Hope, she needs help." She still blames her for this baby's death.
Oh,
and
what,
says-
this baby or particular baby?
This
Specifically her
this
unborn
baby that
child.
was growing in her tum-tum. And she says, "Oh, maybe Hope is beyond saving. He needs to stop defending this little girl." And Tyrone's like, I can't help it. She's kind of my daughter, and I'm stuck between two families. Oh, it's so hard." Well,
Oh, this problem I've made for
Tyrone,
myself.
yeah, exactly. No
So
sympathy
awkward.
to you there.
Not really, no.
So he goes round number 9, and the arguments start again. Evelyn says, "Look, you two, you need to be a united front here. Hope is going to the police station on Wednesday to be interviewed. You two need to be united by her side, not bickering. So sort it out. I'm going to go upstairs. Hope's going to come down, and you're going to tell her what's what about Wednesday." So then we have this great little scene where she's there looking all sorry for herself on the sofa, Hope, and there's like, "Right, you're going to be asked some questions by the police officer. You need to say that you're really, really sorry." And Hope doesn't get it. She's like, "Oh, Alina's fine. Doesn't matter about the cot now anyway. There's no baby to put in it."
And they're like,
"You're not,
oh
don't
my
say
god,
that."
what a monster.
Look, you've got to show some kind of remorse here. And she kind of goes, "Sorry." And then like, she's like, "Not sorry." And then runs off. I thought that was great. So I was very excited to find out on Wednesday exactly what it was she would say. And I think on Wednesday, definitely on Friday, she said the right thing pretty much. I was waiting on Friday at court for her to say anything that would add a little bit of doubt that she would get off to it, but Wednesday
was more exciting.
Wednesday
than
was
Friday.
definitely more exciting. Ty slept on the sofa at number 9. No, sorry, no, he's not at number 9. He's at Alina's flat still. On Wednesday morning, but he has to rush off because he's got to get Hope to this police interview. He says, "Thank you very much, Alina, for letting me stay." Hope doesn't want to go to the police station, and Fizz is trying to reassure her, saying that you just need to tell the truth, it's going to be okay. What I hadn't clocked beforehand is that Tyrone and Fizz wouldn't be allowed in the interview because they're a little bit too involved in this case, so she has to go in there with Evelyn being the responsible adult, and Evelyn's wanting to talk at parts during it. She's like wanting to interject, but
Well, she's also trying to cut it short and make it so
Yeah.
that Hope doesn't get herself in too much trouble, which is a very understandable instinct.
so Abney starts his interview, and as does everybody to Hope in this programme. They're massively babying her, but I think at the end of the day, probably the way that she treated her was the right way. She's like, do you know the difference between right and wrong? Do you know what a good thing is and a bad thing? And do you know the difference between truth and lies? And yeah, that probably is the right way of going about it.
There is actually no such thing as objective truth. We all live in a reality of our own making. Do you have another question?
When she's asked whether setting fire to the cot was the right thing or not, I kind of Hope shrugs and says Alina doesn't need the cot anyway. So,
again, she's really down on this cot.
Yeah, I know. Meanwhile, Fizz is like outside. She's pacing the floor in the waiting room. She's worrying what's going on to Hope, and Tyrone says it's fine. They won't charge her. He's in complete denial about this, and she's over worrying.
We had this discussion about our house move earlier today, and about how I am a pessimist and you're an optimist. But in this situation, you seem to be thinking that the pessimistic route is the correct one, whereas in our everyday life, you are more of the optimist. So explain this dichotomy to me, Michael.
I can't. Very fickle. So meanwhile, Alina is getting a knickers in a twist a bit. She keeps overhearing. There was a lot of handily overhearing people gossiping about her on Wednesday for Alina. It's Beth and Sean first in the factory. We're talking about Fizz's situation and taking Hope to the police station and everything. She kind of confronts them and then flounces off a little bit.
She doesn't own everybody else and their opinions and discussion. Like, it's not down to her who's allowed to talk about what. I don't know who she thinks she is.
She didn't ask for any of this. She just fell in love with Tyrone, and now she's in the middle of...
What were they saying that was wrong?
Nothing really. She just doesn't like her private life being discussed. Well,
it's not her business.
You're on the wrong street for that, I'm afraid, Alina.
I'm afraid for her, she's involved herself in someone else's life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the case of the matter.
Exactly. So we go back to the police station again, and Hope's talking about how the fire started, how she used the nail varnish remover and everything. And Abney's like going, "Oh yeah, fires, they're great, aren't they? They're really exciting."
Just encouraging her now.
I know, she is.
This is the villain's origin story.
And so Hope says that finally she says the right thing, which is, "I didn't know Alina was there, and if I did, I wouldn't have done it. I never meant to hurt anyone." And Evelyn is like, gives her an impressed, sort of satisfied nod at that. Finally, Alina's Hope said the right thing. So Fizz and Tyrone are then told that the interview's over. Hope is going to be charged because she has admitted to committing this criminal act. But it could either be, it's going to be arson, but it could be like with intent to harm or not, just plain old harmless arson. And if she gets, the worst that could happen is that she could go to trial.
If the judge decides that it was with intent,
yeah, she could get,
and then she gets found guilty at trial.
Yeah, she could be sent to kiddie prison for 8 to 12 years.
That's about as long as she's been alive. That's ridiculous.
I know. It's bang in the middle, isn't it? It's like same with life again. That's crazy.
That's literally that's like a life sentence.
I didn't realise it could be that bad, but.
Well, you can't have children running around
trying to kill people. No. So Fizz and Tyrone go back home. They're kind of trying to discuss what they're going to say to Hope, how they're going to support her and everything. But it's fine in the end, fine-ish, because Fizz soon finds out that she is being charged with reckless arson, which is the good one, as Tyrone puts it. They believe that Hope didn't mean to hurt anybody. Fizz is completely drained by this. What a mess. Tyrone says, "Look, let me go and get a chippy tea or whatever. I'm going to stay on the sofa tonight." Hope's the priority now, and Fizz smiles. And it's definitely feeling that Tyrone and Fizz are getting closer.
I told you.
Emotionally and physically.
It's speed all over again.
Going on. So, in the Rovers later, Alina has another instance of overhearing people gossiping about her. She's hacked off about this.
Who does?
I can't remember who it was in the Rover. Alina, yeah. Chatting about her again.
Oh, she starts getting drunk.
She is. She's
I would like a double
she's fed
gin
up
and
with the
tonic,
situation.
please.
Meanwhile, Fizz and Tyrone are having a great time. They come back from the chip shop. She's
laughing
taking the mick out of him about his vinegary winkles. And they both agree that they're on Team Hope. And Alina comes out of the pub looking a bit sad and a little bit drunk. And
Very drunk.
Yeah, Tyrone says that let me see you home, and she's like, "I don't need your help." Fizz says, "No, you go after her, it's fine." So Fizz is at home with Evelyn later on to tell her what's happened, and Evelyn's like, "Oh, it's sounding pretty good between you and Tyrone. Are you getting back together again?" And Fizz is like, "No, but well, maybe if he wants to stay over on the sofa here, maybe
Won't say no.
we could give this co-parenting a try." So she's definitely entertaining the possibility of a reunion with Tyrone at this point. Then she has a nice little scene with Hope, who's like worried about going to prison, and Fizz says, "Oh no, you're not going to prison, but you might have to go to a special home for a while." But they're going to do everything that they can to stop that happening. To be honest, they didn't really have to do much, did they?
No, just went to
they went and
meeting.
sat at the back and reassured her that it's all going to be okay. Meanwhile, Alina is back at home. She's on the sofa, laid out, a little bit loose-lipped after having a bit too much of the sauce. And Tyrone's trying to talk to her, but she's not interested. She says, "Look, go home to your fish and chips." He says, "Look, I didn't
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
Didn't mean to hurt you. I'm not back with Fizz. Don't worry about it. Everything that we're doing is for the girls." And she says, "Look," she gets upset. She thought that this was going to be like a happy ever after for them, and that's a bit of a callback, I think, to her being the Elsa, wasn't it? Because there's been a lot of fairy tale talk around this affair, and she's just been a bit naive about happy endings when you come between this family. So he's like, "Oh no, none of it was real," and he's like, "No, it was. I was in love with you. I'm still in love with you, but we're over, aren't we?" And Alina's like, "Oh, I don't really know." And Tyrone's bit sort of starts opening up about how he's worried about tomorrow. He can't imagine Hope being at one of these kids' homes. "I thought we were so sad. I thought we were gonna be together forever as well. I thought you were my future. I wanted to marry you. I wanted to get a house, get a dog." And she's like, "What you?" She's
like, "What, a dog?"
She thinks that she's being proposed to and accepts, and he seems quite chuffed with this. He's a little bit blindsided for a while, but then realises, "Oh, this could be quite good, actually."
Well, yeah, she's like, "Oh, you want to marry me? In that case, I accept." And he's like, "Oh, crap. Okay."
Well, I don't even think there was any of that. It was literally okay.
That sounds
this could
good
be
to
quite
me.
good, yeah. So Friday, we're getting ready for the trial. Everybody's fretting about it, apart from Evelyn. Well, Evelyn probably is fretting inside, but she's having to do her best to calm everybody down. She notices that Tyrone didn't stay there on the sofa last night, and Fizz says, "Oh, it doesn't matter," but you can tell that she's feeling a bit sad about the fact that Tyrone went back home to Alina. Although he did sleep on the sofa there, and Alina says, "This is no way to start our engagement." And Tyrone's like, he doesn't. It feels like she's trying to start a conversation about, "Oh, isn't it exciting? We got engaged yesterday," and he kind of ignores it and just hurries out to go to number 9 again.
I feel sorry for everyone in this situation, but I'm sorry, Tyrone least of all.
So he goes round to number 9, and the nerves are getting to him too at this point as well. He and Fizz and Evelyn are making themselves look nice for the trial. And
Oh yeah, because the judge is also scoring everybody out of 10 for effort.
Ty, for some reason, decides that this is the perfect opportunity to reveal that he and Alina are engaged.
No, because he said, "Look, I can't lie. I said I would stop lying, and so here's what the score is," which I actually respected the character for, because soaps are full of people going, "No more lies, but I'm not going to reveal the thing I'm keeping from you."
I'm glad that he explained and told her the truth, but I don't think that just before the trial, when she's already,
Anxious.
at her wit's end,
Yeah,
was exactly
not the
the right
best
time,
time.
because they get to the court, they're still having a go at each other, they're still bickering, and she should have. They've agreed that they're going to stand behind Hope, but they're not there for Hope at that moment, are they? They're there having a go at each other, or Fizz having a go at him. So anyway, the woman, I don't know who this other woman was. The long,
I couldn't work out. She was a social worker,
or another police officer or something. I don't know.
a court liaison, or is she their lawyer?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, she comes in and explains what's going to happen and tries to reassure Fizz and Tyrone. Meanwhile,
She's like, "Don't worry, the judge is biased."
Meanwhile, Alina is telling Emma about the engagement, and oh yeah, I'll do my best to look after Hope, even though she tried to kill me. If that's what Tyrone
because
wants.
Emma's like, "If you get married to Tyrone, this pyromaniac that killed your baby will be your stepdaughter."
Yeah.
And he was like, don't worry, that's the beginning of all the best stories from Romania.
And then we get to the court and it's kind of all over, isn't it?
Yeah,
the judge just said,
like...
oh, well, yeah, you can go home, I suppose, if you want.
There was a lot of emphasis put on the fact that because they were united, even though they had broken up, that this represented some kind of important stability for Hope and therefore is better.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think, I totally understand where they're coming from here, but it really felt a bit misguided considering the amount of families, especially even Tyrone, who have been sort of split asunder because of domestic abuse or violence. Like, so say this was Tyrone and Kirsty. If they weren't together at a court case to sort of say whether Ruby should be allowed to sent to prison or not, and he didn't come because Kirsty like emotionally and physically abused him, that would actually have counted against them in this judgment. That just seems a bit... I understand where they're coming from, but it seems like a quite antiquated
yeah.
idea of what a family unit should be like, because surely it's better to be separated from an abusive parent than it is for them both to turn up together.
I think the judge just said it for the drama, really. She's like, well, what's important now, family, is that you stay together.
I know,
and that
but
you support
it felt
this
like
girl.
It was for the drama, yes, but it did feel like the wrong message, and I would not be surprised if this was not how family courts operate, because I also think that this is a very widespread held opinion, but it just kind of jived with what we had learned already from various stories about abusive relationships in the show. Made me feel a bit weird to watch it.
Yeah. So they go home
and feel sorry for people who are in situations where they get their children taken away from them because they've done the right thing by separating from an abusive spouse. I don't know.
They go home. They're telling Hope about the therapist coming around. She's very unfazed by the whole thing, really. Tyrone has to go back to Alina, so Fizz is kind of left fretting away on her own, really. But when Tyrone gets home, Alina's all kind of dolled up. She wants to have a celebration for the engagement, that is.
And he gets
not Hope
confused because he thinks, he's like, there's no point celebrating yet because blah, blah, blah. She's like, no, I mean for our engagement, silly. I don't care about Hope. She's not really my stepdaughter until we get married, so I don't care.
Then we have
this was the most awful part of the whole week.
What?
When she says, shall we get sushi? And he's like, no, that's raw fish. I was like, wrong. That's not raw fish. That's the seasoned rice that goes with raw fish. And then she said, oh, how about Italian? You'll like that. And I'm like, wrong. Italian is not suitable for takeaway unless you're talking about pizza, in which case say pizza. Who wants old soggy pasta in a takeaway dish? What takeaway Italian is there? It baffled me. How useless are you that you need to order pasta in? Pasta's like the bottom of the barrel, can't be bothered to cook anything.
It is a bit, isn't it?
Chuck something out of a jar in some penne and there you goes pasta. What are you going to pay £8 per packet for that? To be delivered cold?
I hadn't really thought about that, but...
This incensed me.
Completely agree, yeah.
I've been thinking about this since it was on. That's like an hour I've been thinking about this. Going, that's wrong, that's just wrong. I don't care what you say about arsonists and children killing babies. Don't say Italian is a takeaway.
Okay. I'll be sure not to. Chesney comes round and we have this whole bit about that he and Gemma have agreed that they can't look after Hope anymore.
No, they said they didn't want Hope around the children.
Yeah. And then he goes and tells Tyrone this, which makes Tyrone go back to Fizz, and they because he's gone to the shop to go and get some prosecco or something, hasn't he, for him and
What
Alina?
Do you mean prosecco or something?
Prosecco.
Yes.
So he's back at number 9 now, and he's told Fizz about what Ches said to him, and Fizz is very on the edge, and she's like saying, look, I just need things to go back to the way they were. I'm trying my best. I've been vigilant around Hope. But literally, but then she blames Tyrone, doesn't she? She says, at the end of the day, if you went off, chasing after this bit of skirt, who can blame Hope for what she's done?
Not me.
And Tyrone, rather than arguing back, he's like, Yeah, it was my fault, wasn't it? He has a bit of a cry, doesn't he, on the sofa? I've wrecked everybody's lives. But then they kind of start chatting on the sofa, and he goes in for a kiss.
Oh, I couldn't believe it.
Oh, it's brilliant.
No!
She kind of pulls back fairly quickly, and then they sort of talk about, oh, isn't there such a mess? But then they start snogging again. But they're not caught yet. They almost got caught by Evelyn, who came in. And
she says, "Oh, what are you up to, you scoundrels?" Or
yeah, something. And so Tyrone hurries off pretty quickly, and Fizz looks all the flutter about what's been going on. So he comes home to Alina an hour late. She's really annoyed about where he's been, but she kind of says that she understands that today's taken it out of him and everything. And she says, "Oh, I'll go and get some more prosecco," and that's the end of it. Really, he looks pretty awkward about what's happened there. So that is it. A lot happened this week. Do you want to? Should we talk about the hope stuff or the potential Fizz and Tyrone reunion?
No, I want to talk about what's the takeaway, because she wanted.
We're going to talk. We're not going to talk about that. That's not a talking point.
So you don't deliver sushi in metal, because I'm pretty sure that the metal would interact with the fish in some way and make it taste weird. So it must have been pasta. But why were there so many packets?
Not
how
interested.
much pasta do you really want? And what do you want? I can maybe stretch to understand that lasagna might be something you could put into a takeaway container and sell. Maybe. But who's ordering spaghetti bolognese from a takeaway?
Is that enough? You got it out of you? Got it out of your
I'm
system?
really upset about it.
Are you as upset about that as you are the fact that Fizz and Tyrone might be getting back together?
You were happy about this.
We had very different reactions, didn't we?
You were like,
literally.
hooray! And I was like, no,
I cheered, and you were like, no.
No, because I don't want them to get back together again, because Tyrone is a monster.
He doesn't deserve to go back together with Fizz. But look, if I can't have Jenny and Johnny get back together again, then I will absolutely settle for Fizz and Tyrone, because I think that they're great. He needs to go.
Why does he get away with? No, this annoys me. This man has gone and he ruined one woman's life, and then he's ruining another woman's life, and he gets away with it scot-free. And all that happens was he has a few little crocodile tears about how it's all his fault that Hope's an arsonist, and then because Fizz is socialised as a woman and has to feel sorry and kind of baby him and take his emotional burden away from him, now he's absolved of all of his sins. And he's allowed to just come back into the family because he was so sad and sorry about what he did. Well, don't do it in the first place. How about that?
She never stopped loving him.
I don't care. She should just say, no, you're a dirty dog. You deserve what you've got. If you don't like Alina, tell her as well. This is what I don't like.
I definitely
don't. He's hedging his bets.
I definitely don't think...
He's not going to go back to Alina and say... He hasn't, has he? He's not going to go back to Alina and go, oh, yeah, we're over. He's like, okay, yeah, we are going to get married. What are you doing? You can't have both.
Is next week... Are we going to have next week Fizz and Tyrone kind of secretly... It's like having an affair with the person that you were with to start with. Are we going to have that? Or
let's just be frank. Let's just be honest and fair to a certain extent to Tyrone and Alina, because they never cheated together, did they? He broke up.
Yeah, he did.
They kissed once, and then he said, okay, this. I'm not going to do this to Fizz. I'm going to split up with her and move on with you, because I have feelings that are too intense. How can you be so wrong?
I feel bad for Alina if this happens, and I wasn't sure before this week completely whether Fizz and Tyrone would end up together. Now I've seen this happen, I am fairly certain that they're going to be having a happy Christmas at number 9 this year, the four of them. And I do kind of feel, Alina, that she's caught up in this, and it's going to be very awkward for her to stay around the street if that's what she does.
Tyrone,
they're going to be back together again. And if I was Fizz's friend, I would be telling her,
don't go back with him.
Don't go back with him.
He's so emotionally immature that he can't even decide. I'm sorry, it's immature. If your head gets turned to the extent that you're willing to leave the person that you basically wanted to marry and spend the rest of your life with for another woman, in the course of, what was it, a week? Be generous, a month? And then you change your mind back again, and this isn't even six months worth of... He's been
unsure about that. He's been made the right decision about Alina for a while, though, hasn't he? We've seen the signs. We've seen that he gets a bit embarrassed about, all her you know, the car picture and the slogans on the wall and everything. The writing's been on the wall for them already.
It's unfair to both women. And it's typical.
I just think I don't know. I can't say any more than it's nice that they're a nice family, but it's following a similar trajectory to Sally and Kevin as well. Actually,
what's
isn't
to
it,
stop him from doing this again?
Yeah,
nothing. Literally nothing. He's got no loyalty.
Once
at all.
Kevin had his head turned by Natalie, he eventually. It was before the end of the year that he was back with Sally again, wasn't he? But things were never the same again, and they were on and off and on and off before finally splitting up. But then they got married again a few years later.
No.
So I can't say that just because they're going to get back together now, assume that that they're
what
going to
happened
be
to all
together
this
forever.
rubbish about she's abusing me, she's so mean, she nags me all the time, and all these people who were anti-Fizz is so horrible. She's always belittling him and laughing at him for all of his faults that he has a large amount of, including being a disloyal arsehole and toe rag. Where are they? What do they think of this?
Yeah, he totally is. But
all the things that he did to... he's doing it to Alina now. This is what I say. If somebody's going to cheat with you on their current partner, they're going to cheat on you with someone else.
I thought it was quite interesting how...
Fickle.
The wedding thing, because this all started when he wasn't really into Fizz organising that secret Greek wedding for them, was he?
Is he just scared of commitment?
But he agreed to commit to Alina pretty quickly.
If Fizz turns around and says, "Oh, good, okay, so I'll book that Greek wedding then, shall I?" He'll run back to Alina and say, "What should we do? Go to Romania?"
I don't think he will.
I've got no respect for this at all.
I suppose we should have seen the kiss coming, shouldn't we? Because there's been an awful lot of closeness between Fizz and Tyrone all week. The social distancing is not there. We noticed this on Wednesday's episode at the police station when they were standing extremely close to each other. They even had a bit of a holy hand scene on Wednesday, and it feels. I don't know. I don't know whether it was just for this story or whether Corrie gradually starting to come out of lockdown again, which would be good, because they even Sally and Aggie were quite close to each other on the table at the cafe together, weren't they?
They weren't very close to each other when they were running around the table.
They weren't during that bit, but
which was funny.
That was it was nice to see. Yeah, a bit more closeness. And I wonder whether that'll carry on, because I don't even think we've seen Tyrone and Alina that close together, actually, have we? But no, the snog did necessitate a bit of bubbling up or whatever it is they're doing, or maybe they're not needing it anymore. I don't know.
Was that the first?
Well, we had the James and Danny kiss about a month ago, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Predated it by a whole month.
Yeah, but the problem with the Bailey story, I suppose, is because we've barely seen James and Danny together since then. But I assume we will
he's
see.
On a chef course.
Oh yeah, sorry. I assume we will see more of Fizz and Tyrone together now, and maybe there'll be more of this bubbling to come. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I was happy with that. You weren't. What about? Let's go to the hope side of stuff, because that was very nice and tense. I did think. Do you agree that the hearing was a little bit anticlimactic compared to how it could have been? I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. I didn't know whether Alina would turn up and reveal that Hope had actually, got a history of being a massive arsonist.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they took anything into consideration. Honestly, this is why I was a bit confused about the whole concept of, well, you turned up together and that's more than most people, so you get let off. It seemed like the judge was literally judging the entire thing on the basis of whether Tyrone and Fizz were there together.
Hope didn't say anything that she shouldn't have said. It was just a bit of a letdown, really. I think they could have strung it out for longer. I wasn't really interested in some of the other bits that the story went, like Chesney and Gemma and not looking after Hope. I didn't think the story needed that. Maybe it's going to come into play later on. I was
also expecting a bit more of a philosophical discussion about whether Hope actually did cause the death of Alina's unborn child, and if so, does that count? And because this is a thing that people can't agree on at all, about whether an unborn child should count, because in a wrongful death argument, because then you get the people who say, well, if you're going to allow abortion, then you shouldn't allow You know, as though that makes any sense.
It felt
whatsoever.
like the thrust of it was definitely about whether Hope
it was
meant to hurt Alina.
It was regardless of the consequences. What were her intentions?
Yeah, but it wasn't to do. The courts didn't seem to care that Alina was pregnant.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That didn't come up into it at all, and there was no like victim impact statement, which could have been really sort of poignant and
Alina didn't have.
Like, she didn't even get to say anything. No. Nobody mentioned that it caused a pregnant woman. Well, I mean, because we don't even know whether that was the case. And I'm still wondering whether they're ever going to have somebody say to Alina, you know that it wasn't your fault, but it also wasn't Hope's fault. Because I think she needs to hear that. Because she doesn't... I don't think she's... Although she seems over it now. I guess, you know, a nice takeaway spaghetti carbonara will do that to a woman. And don't worry, you can just reheat it in the oven.
I think with this whole of the story, we're missing the most important issue, Gemma, which is Moira, who runs the holiday club, the same Moira who we haven't seen on Coronation Street for a year and a half?
That is the most burning question, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah, because we had Hope and Ruby coming back from holiday club in their pirate garb, didn't they? And Evelyn says the line like, "Oh, it's good that kids have got such strong role models," and she tells Hope to eat all her broccoli so that she'll have a full beard by tomorrow, which is quite funny. But yeah, they mentioned Moira. I don't think it was the same Moira.
It's not the same Moira, because if Moira was in charge of a holiday club, and she did have children dressing up as pirates, I can only imagine that she would send them out to rob people just like real pirates.
You go to the off licence, you go to the corner shop, you go around the back of the Rovers, see if you can find new bottles out there.
And whoever gets the most amount of money or value of goods wins the prize, which is a certificate.
And I can just imagine Moira there just supping away, getting quietly sottled while the kids were...
to bring me some rum.
Well, yeah, even when they come back, they're just raising merry hell at the community centre, and she's just like, whatever. But
she's like, I love kids, and then she drinks.
There were two things that reminded me of Moira for this week, actually. There was that one, plus there was the whole pollocks stuff with Debbie and... They're just toying with us, aren't they?
I think they are.
Anyway, the story was pretty good this week.
Wow, I want everyone to tell me what they thought of Fizz and Tyrone having a snog at the end. Reunion. Are we thumbs up or thumbs down, and why? Please tell me.
Right, let's do the other relationship story this week then. So Daisy and Daniel, what's going on there? Right,
so... We get to know the price of a house, and I lowballed this last week, didn't I? I said it was probably worth about £200,000. Apparently not, because it is in the centre of Manchester and the property is pretty overpriced there, I would say. £400,000
for Denise's house.
For this house, which is near a deli, apparently, which probably puts 20 grand on there. So if only we'd known.
I like Sarah's reaction to this. She was very jealous of Daniel getting this property, and she called him spawny, which isn't an expression that I... Or was it just something like lucky, jammy and lucky?
Yeah, we'd say jammy down here. I don't know if they say jammy up north. But jammy is definitely a word that you'd say to mean lucky.
Spawn is like a type of jam, isn't it? It's just frog jam.
Oh my god.
Same thing.
Anyway, so Daisy and Daniel and Sarah all hear this. And Adam is the one who's talking to Daniel about it as his uncle, nephew, / lawyer, I don't know, family member. And so Daisy tries to talk with Adam in the cafe, and he has a number immediately and says, I'm not interested in talking to you. I can see right through you. And he says, you're just a game player with a boyfriend. So she does not like this. So she goes and bones up on Byron so she can quote it at Daniel in the pub. And Ryan comes in and he's like, why have you been Googling Byron on our iPad? He obviously was excited because he thought they were going out for a burger, because in the UK, Byron is a chain of burger restaurants.
They did make that reference, didn't they?
Daniel overhears and realises that she's trying to win him over with her literary quotes. Jenny tells Daisy that she needs to treat Ryan better because he's booked them a place at an all-you-can-eat buffet. And Daisy's like, kill me now.
And this is where Gemma and Daisy differ, isn't it? If I give you a secret booking at the all-you-can-eat buffet,
I'd be there with my plate.
I'd be in your good books. I'd get husband points there.
I'd be there with my plate and Tupperware in my bag. Adam and Daniel are chatting at the booth, and Daniel thinks that Daisy feels sorry for him because he's a single dad. And Adam says to Daisy that Daniel has enough heartache for a lifetime. So on Wednesday, Adam and Sarah bump into Daniel because he's late for a pre-term meeting. Because you remember, everybody, he is a trainee teacher.
Well, I mean, I assume he's not a trainee teacher anymore. I assume he's qualified. Well, you know, he's passed his PGCE. You don't get properly qualified until you've done your NQT year, the newly qualified teacher year, although I think they're calling it something different next year, which is a year later. But yeah, he's got his job.
He's got a job lined up and he's got to do all this prep, Michael.
I don't know whether anyone else like me would have liked to have seen anything to do with Daniel's PGCE, but maybe I just, you know, I want to see some of the characters in Coronation Street going through some of what I've been through and everything, and I don't identify with an awful lot of what the characters do, but I've done my PGC, and I'd quite like to see Daniel going through it. It's hard work. It is jolly hard work doing your PGC, and your first year of teaching is also massively stressful. And but yeah, he's got himself a job. We didn't have to see him go in for any interviews or anything. I assume he's just waltzed into the English teacher's position at Weatherfield High. I don't even think they said which school he's teaching at. I think we just assume, as the only school in Weatherfield, that's where he's going. And it doesn't work like that. It's not as bad as in France. Like literally in France, when you get your teaching qualification, you can be sent anywhere in the country to teach.
Yeah, it's like,
and you just have to go wherever
a soldier to war.
Yeah, so Daniel would have had to have applied to lots of different schools in the area. So I don't know. I think I'm naturally going to be more interested in this than everybody else. I assume he's doing English teaching, although they didn't. I don't think they mentioned that. Daisy said that she wanted to be an English teacher, didn't she? But I don't think. I think it was only implied that Daniel was. And yeah, he's gone to this pre-term meeting.
Which is a morning's worth of work.
Well, no, the meeting isn't the morning's worth of work. The meeting is part of a morning, and then he spends the rest of the morning doing prep, and maybe it sounds like he's ready for the new term now.
It's incredibly unrealistic and unfortunate because Coronation Street is a show about everyday people and their lives, and they just don't care about jobs. Like, jobs just seem like a really awkward thing that they have to work their characters around. And they prefer it if they just own a business. I think that of all the television programmes in the world, Coronation Street is probably the one who is championing a universal basic income more than anyone else. Because then the characters just get a cheque and do nothing for it except gossip and have affairs with each other all day long.
Yeah. So I think I'm probably going to end up being mad about Daniel being a teacher, just in the same way that anybody who's watching gets mad at
whatever profession.
Somebody on the show doing whatever job they do, because
it's really
Corrie doesn't necessarily handle it
well. They don't care to bother.
Make it completely realistic.
It's not what the show's about, is it?
No, it's
from their perspective, even though...
Yeah, so I'm sure before long we'll see Daniel having his breakfast in the cafe at 10 to 9.
It could be about that if they wanted it to be, but they don't, so...
The thing is, they must have made Daniel a teacher for some reason, and we haven't seen at all what that reason is yet, apart from, yes, he needed to get a job, but are there going to be any kind of school-related stories? Is he going to...
Ken had a few, didn't he? Quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, Ken did. He had... Yeah, it was. He had his affair with Mrs. Jeffers. He had
say,
Tracy
for
being
example,
there.
Look back on Ken's sort of life and his career and his various careers, because he was, most prominently, he was a teacher and an editor and journalist. And contrast that with Coronation Street now, where unless it's a sort of hospitality job, they just don't show it, or in the factory.
No, we saw some scenes of Brian being a teacher and a head teacher at the primary
only
school.
Only so that guy, he could spew on that guy's lap.
So I think that as things stand at the moment, we're not going to see any in-school scenes from Daniel because they haven't got a school set, as far as I know.
No, they used to film it at a local school, didn't they? All these scenes.
Yeah, but as I said, he must have been a teacher for some reason. There's going to be
a great storyline.
But I mean, because they're doing all this with the teens, aren't they? I'm wondering whether any, is Asher or Amy or someone who goes to school going to be in his English class, I guess. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's nearly September, so sorry. What else has happened?
So Adam and Sarah offered to look after Bertie, and Daisy's there, and Adam says, I tried to warn Daisy off you last night. And then she starts following Daniel around and says, I always wanted to be English teacher, but I never had the courage. And he kind of dismisses her. Then he goes into the pub later and he's got all these teacher training books, like teacher training for dummies for Daisy. And he says, look, I'm really sorry, I was so dismissive of you. Here you go. And and gives it to Ryan. So Ryan takes the book to Daisy and says, you never told me you want to be a teacher. And why are you sharing your dreams with another bloke? And she's like, oh, I can't believe this. I can't believe that you didn't listen to me. Or I can't believe, she's using any opportunity to twist everything back on Ryan to undermine their relationship. And says, I need time to think about this, and walks off. Adam and Sarah have taken Bertie to the Bistro to have a meal, and they gave him something with a battery in it, and the next minute they look, the battery's gone.
Yeah, he's got a
and they don't know
teddy bear.
Don't know where it's gone, and Daniel immediately thinks he's eaten it, and they sort of rush outside to get to the hospital, and Daisy's there, and she says, oh, I'll help you because I've done a children's first aid course. And Daniel's like, get out of the way, skank. Step skank. I've got to sort my son out and I don't need your help. They come back from the hospital and it turns out he's fine, but they don't know where this battery went. And Daniel's talking...
That's still the biggest mystery of the week. Where is this battery?
Where's the battery and what takeaway?
Haven't found out. If it's rolling on the floor at the bistro, then somebody could slip on that and then sue Debbie and the Anne for millions. I'm worried for them.
Anne.
Well, yeah.
It falls over taking a longestine to somebody's table. So, there's no battery, but nobody knows or cares where it's gone. And Jenny's there and she says, I understand how difficult it is and how overprotective you can be. I remember when I should have been a bit more protective, my son who died in a pool.
Yeah.
And Daisy always, it was sad really, because apart from the fact that my son drowned, Daisy also quite liked him because they were sort of half brother and sister. And Dan was like, oh, Daisy had a brother who died. Maybe I should have been a bit more charitable about her reaction to my son nearly dying of eating a battery. Maybe she's genuinely worried about him because she remembered her own tragic past. I didn't realise that I was in a soap and everyone's got a tragic past. So he goes and finds Daisy and says, I'm really sorry. Jenny told me about how great a big sister to Tom you were and what happened to him. And she says, yes, it reminds me, what happened with Bertie reminded me and brought it all back to me. And I did that first aid course after he died. And he says, look, if you want to talk about it, I'm up for that. And she's like, oh, maybe I will. Then she basically dumps Ryan. And she tells Daniel that she was dumped and she feels sad. And he says, oh, I'm so sorry that I had such a bad impression of you when you're actually not a bad egg. And she's like, ha ha ha, my plan is working. On Friday, Daniel recommends a book to Daisy. Yeah. And she's like, oh, yeah, I definitely read that, I think. And Alia's like seeing all this happening. She goes into the Rovers later and she says to Jenny that Daisy's a skank, and this is when Jenny says, excuse me, that's my step skank you're talking about. And she's moved on to Daniel already. And Jenny also tells Alia that she may have got the wrong impression about what happened between Daisy and Ryan, because she thought that Daisy and Ryan slept with one another, because that's what Daisy said. But actually we know that what happened was Ryan fell asleep in Daisy's bed and Daisy let him think that they had had sex. So later on, Alia goes to the bistro, or is it?
Oh, it's supposed to be speed dial, yeah.
Tells Yasmin what she learned about how Daisy ensnared Ryan, and Yasmin says, you've got to sort of be ruthless as Daisy is. So Ollie goes into the Rovers and she's like, hello losers. And she's like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not involved in whatever the hell this is. And she points at sort of the general mess that's being created by Daisy, Daniel and Ryan. And she says, listen, Ryan, you didn't cheat on me. Daisy's there listening. She's like, Daisy, just lied about it to make you think that you had slept together, but you didn't. And Daisy's like, no. And then Ollie's like, well, I'm leaving, but before I go, I'm just going to warn you, Daniel, run away from her because she is nothing but trouble. Daisy then tries to have it out with Jenny for basically backstabbing her. And Jenny's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to. You're a liar and you don't deserve, and Ollie doesn't deserve what you're putting her through. Stop messing around with Ryan. Stop messing around with Daniel. And she says, I don't want to dislike you. And Daisy's like, oh, what do you mean? And Jenny says, stop doing dislikable things. And Daisy's like, huh. And that's the end of that, really. So that was quite good. Watching Jenny suddenly, the scales falling from her eyes and her telling Daisy off, which is what she really needs, isn't it?
It is. I mean, but Jenny's got, more scales over her eyes than a snake has got on its body, I think. Because she's told Daisy this time and time again, and then the next episode it's like nothing's happened.
Well, see,
so I'd like to believe that Jenny is starting to be a bit harsher on her, but I just don't know.
See, this is what makes me wonder. Last week I did my YouTube psychology analysis on Daisy and said that she might be looking for a father figure in her boyfriends or whatever. But I also wonder whether at a very crucial point in her development, when she was just beginning to blossom as a woman or go through a very awkward teenage stage, she kind of basically got abandoned by both Jenny and her dad after Tom died, and she is kind of left rudderless and left to fend for herself. And all of these life lessons that she might have been guided carefully towards by her parents were completely missed.
Yeah.
And now Jenny's trying to parent her in retrospect, and it doesn't really work.
I thought that it was really nice that we got some humanity for Daisy again this week. We've seen drips of it, but then I never know whether to believe it or not. This week was probably the first time that I ever actually believed that Daisy was being genuine and had feelings, and she isn't just 100% nasty cow.
She's done it before.
She has a bit, but I've never really completely bought it. Even it was mostly on Wednesday, all the stuff with the paediatric course that she'd been on and everything. And when she was talking about Tom, I absolutely believed her then. She wasn't saying it just to try and get into Daniel's pants or her hands on his cash.
And I also thought it was pretty clever because as a viewer, when she was saying, oh, is there something wrong with Bertie, let me have a look, I've done a first aid course, I thought, no you haven't, you liar. I can't believe that you'd endanger a child's life just to try to win the dad over. I can imagine her sort of going, oh no, his airway's clear, you know what I mean? But she actually wasn't lying. She actually really did a children's first aid course, which actually caught me by surprise, as well as all the characters in the episode.
I mean, I don't think she actually wants to be a teacher, so she's not being
she's
100% truthful. Because at the end of the day, she still does want this money from Daniel's house, doesn't she? And I'm wondering, what's going to happen there? Because she seems, I don't know whether she's actually falling for Daniel or not, because he's it's a bit of a catch. He doesn't seem to. Adam's more wary of Daisy than Daniel is, I think. So I can see him hooking up with her.
Daniel is
and then she'll be in a position of like, oh, what do I do? Do I take the money somehow, or can I not bring myself to do it because I've realised I've got a bit of a conscience in here and that's wrong? Is she going to go full steam ahead with it, take the money, and then realise, oh, I shouldn't have done this?
I can imagine her getting with Daniel and being super, super into everything he says and does, up until the moment that she twigs that this money is going to be invested in Bertie's sort of future and also his burgeoning beard oil business that Carla's supposedly still running.
And maybe swimming lessons so he doesn't drown in any paddling pools. Yeah, I think so. This could possibly be the making of Daisy.
No.
Or it could cement that she is just a nasty cow, I don't know. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with being a gold digging hoe.
I think it's quite interesting that the whole double glammy article that Daniel wrote about her mere months ago hasn't been brought up.
He was her enemy, public enemy number one, who's taken away her sort of source of income, and at no point
she was going to buy into the Rovers with this.
See, this is the thing that gets me. She needs a confidant, because it would. I feel like I'm missing a scene where Daisy turns to her equally evil or gormless best friend and says, he stole my business from him, so I'm going to take that money.
Yeah,
it's
is she doing
rightfully
it
mine.
just for revenge?
I would have been able to earn £400,000 with double glammy easy, but because of that meddling journalist, I'm never going to get my hands on it. So he owes me. She can justify this in her mind now, knowing what we know about how that she blames him for the loss of her business. But apparently all of that is gone up in the air. She doesn't care. I mean, one minute she's super into DJing at the Alps, and the next minute she's reading Under Milkwood or whatever.
Yeah, I can't tell whether it's going to get brought up or not, whether she's just doing it for revenge and then she realises, oh no, I'm actually falling for this guy. But I'm surprised that Daniel hasn't brought it up, because he literally wrote this article about, I suppose the article wasn't about how evil Daisy is, it was more about how Daisy was manipulated by this evil
wasn't,
corporation.
but you know that she spoke to him specifically about this and blamed him for her, because it directly led to her being dropped.
Yeah, maybe it will come up. I don't know. But yeah, this is another story that I thought was quite good, particularly strong on Wednesday because of the humanity we got for David. Not for David, I call that for Daisy. But yeah, today wasn't quite so good. I would have liked today more, I think, if I'd believed that Jenny was actually going to hold her ground against Daisy. But if she does, then fantastic. Okay, so the parking storyline then. I kind of assumed that this story was going to be over after Todd got hit by a car, and the whole thing about the Inkerman Street non-residents putting all their cows on Coronation Street was literally just there so that Todd could have an excuse to not leave Weatherfield. But it looks like they're keeping on going with it. But definitely
they know when they're onto a good thing.
Well, definitely a genius move to put Sally in charge of the campaign to try and get Coronation Street made residents parking only.
Can I say that I honestly think that this story shows me that Sally has a missed calling as a traffic warden herself. And if this story doesn't end with her joining Fergus on the dark side, I don't understand what it was about. Because she likes holding a clipboard and she likes looking at parked cars. What else do you need?
I think they just give her any kind of campaign and then she's in her element, doesn't she?
This is why I will never forgive Tim for what he did to her political career.
Exactly.
Never forgive, but I have a new perspective on Tim now. He is no longer my most hated male character.
No, you've got a new one, haven't you?
Martin Platt.
Martin Platt. Joe hates Martin Platt.
Martin Platt so much. Even when look, this is how much I hate Martin Platt. I watched Tim today telling Sally that he didn't agree with her, and I thought, he's not that bad. That's how much I hate Martin Platt.
Do you want to elaborate?
No, we'll talk about it
when we get to it.
When we do the early 2000s. I'm sure I've mentioned it though in the 90s.
I don't think.
In the latter half
I think
of the
Martin
90s.
has got worse.
He's such an
as his time on the show has gone on. Okay, anyway, so this parking story, what's gone on? So surprise, Fergus out in the wild first thing on Monday.
They let him out.
I was not at all expecting to see Fergus appear outside of Izzy's front room.
I know, because at one point he could have been a figment of Izzy's imagination.
Yeah. But no, he's real, and he's a traffic warden. Though we don't know that straight away. He's just there. He's there reading the paper or something, and Sally's there having a bit of a rant about traffic wardens because she's got a ticket for after parking on Inkerman Street, and she's ranting power mad the traffic wardens, and he reveals that yes, I am one of these. So they bump into each other again later, and he gives her a bit of an update on Izzy. The Izzy story doesn't come into this at all, really. She starts moaning on about traffic wardens again, and it transpires that he was the one that gave her the ticket the other day.
Oh no, who would have thought that?
Yeah. So she's at the end of the episode tries to sweet talk Fergus into making her ticket disappear, and you obviously can't do that, but Sally really, really did believe that she would be able to change this guy's mind, doesn't she? She thinks she's got awesome persuasive power. No, he's not having any of it. No, he's just like, pay the fine. And we didn't see Fergus at all after this. It's very sad. Yeah. So Wednesday we got a little scene with her recruiting Aggie to help her out with the campaign. She tries, I can't remember who she talks to first, but it takes a while for her to find somebody that would agree to join her in this cause, and it's Aggie. And so Sally kind of dumps a load of leaflets in her lap, and Aggie maybe regrets admitting that this is quite a good idea.
I just want to add something here, because Coronation Street knows we're all watching this going, are you pulling my leg here? Nobody on this show has owned a car since we saw Roy with Woody last. What are you trying to pull?
This is the ultimate irony story,
during
you're right.
the Hope storyline, they were talking about going to the court, and Fizz said, I'm sure, only to make this story have a bit more credibility, Tyrone, you don't mind driving, do you? Everyone at home's like, what? Driving in a car to get there? Are you joking me?
It's so silly because we've for years it's been a bit of a running joke that there's never any cars on the street, is there?
Yep.
Where does everybody park?
Or
and
do
now
they
all
even
of
have
a
a
sudden,
car?
all of a sudden, everybody
And
wants to
why
park
would you
there.
need a car?
We want to make Coronation Street residents only. It makes sense in the real world because lots of people do park outside their homes, and they would if they didn't have a driveway.
This storyline is sort of a kind of a bit dear to our heart because we have no parking in the house we're in now. It's on-road parking only, and we live in a close, and there are 32 homes in the close, all very close together because they're masonettes. So instead of having like one detached house, you've got 4 people living in the same area, and if every one of those people had a car, there'd be nowhere to put all of the cars. I don't even have a car because there'd be nowhere to put it. And then the council tried to put double yellow lines in, and immediately I was like Sally on the case. I wrote to every single person I could find. I contacted my friend who works for the council in the roads department, got her to tell me what to do, and I wrote loads of like really arsey letters to as many people as I could find, telling them there is no way on earth they're going to put double yellow lines in because that means that nobody's going to be able to park and it's going to be absolute chaos. And they had to give in the end because it didn't make any sense. And so this story to me makes sense, but only when you have people who actually drive cars. Because on Coronation Street, it is a joke that nobody has a car, but equally, why would you need one? Because you literally walk across the road to where you work and then across the road again to have a pint. And then you walk across the road and down the road to go and get yourself a nice curry, and then you come back and have your hair cut at Audrey's.
Yeah.
What do you need your car for?
I'll
tell you what you need a car. To get to Starbucks because there's only a Costa.
You say that you're like Sally, but Gemma, when we had our double yellow lines things earlier this year, did you have a table with a map of the close on and you were walking around it military style? I was almost expecting Sally to have little models of cars and stuff and
push
use
them
the
around like
shuffler.
in the bunker during World War II.
It is, she was, yeah.
She was
She was Churchill, wasn't
she was
she?
Aggie. What's a I don't know anybody else.
Churchill just won the war single-handedly.
He did it by
He
himself.
didn't have any help. I thought that was a brilliant scene. That was so funny. And then, like you mentioned earlier, they were dancing around the table so that they never were actually having to be near each other, although they were next to each other in the cafe later on. So.
Maybe Aggie was like the French underground resistance.
Maybe.
She's not like fully on board with this publicly, but she does support her.
So Sally is
down
determined to get as many supporters as she can, as many signatures, and win this war against the
parking problem.
People parking there that don't actually live there.
Look, can we just say briefly what this problem is? Because it does seem temporary. I thought that they had, or is it permanent?
No, I think that the problem... I thought it was the
Street.
problem that they were doing works on Inkerman Street, so Inkerman Street residents had to park here, but they've made Inkerman Street residents only. So all the people who previously went to park on Inkerman Street but didn't live there are now parking on Coronation Street. And Sally wants to give them the old heave-ho.
Well, presumably this is also a fairly common or not unheard of issue in a large city like Manchester or Salford, where you've got places that are near public transport, like they're near the tubes.
There's so many businesses
station.
around Coronation Street. If this was back in the 1960s version of Coronation Street, where the only business was the Rover's Return,
and the Builder's Yard,
and the Mission Hall,
yeah,
then maybe there wouldn't
problem.
need to be so many cars there. But yeah, it's
because
the metropolitan hub of Weatherfield, this little back street now.
Because there's always, contested problems, and especially on a street with terraced houses with no front yards.
Just imagine how bad the situation would be if Ray had got his way and had had all those other businesses there. I hope he'd planned car parking into that. Anyway, so Sally tries to go spend the episode trying to get these signatures. Maria's not interested. We got to see Liam, didn't we, for the first time, and I don't know how long. She was very busy. Tracy doesn't like the idea. She comes up with some stiff resistance from the businessman, led by Tracy, who's like, no, sorry, I need all these people coming in from outside the street because they park here to get their flowers.
She's not wrong.
She's not. Although, I mean, no, it can't be that they can come and park temporarily, can they? It's like they could meet in the middle and make it a 2-hour zone, and then people could come and get their flowers and then leave.
That's what they should do. Oh no, if we just come up with the end point for this story.
Maybe we have.
Well, this is what, you've got a problem at your school because there's no car park for staff. This has irritated me the entire time we've worked there. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You are employed by the council to be a teacher at that school, but you have no designated parking space for your car, and they won't give you a permit as an employee of the county or the city to park there. So you have to fight with a bunch of other people, including students at the nearby university, for spaces, which is one of the reasons why you leave the house at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to school so that you can park.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's unfair, and I understand this drive to make people use public transport, but I have tried to travel from our house to your workplace, and I have to take 2 buses. How long does it take you to drive?
Like 12-13 minutes in the morning.
And I have to take 2 buses to get there, and it takes, because of how infrequent the buses are from here, it takes an hour on public transport to get from here to there. So there's no way you could use public transport. But the good thing is they've now introduced electric scooters, so perhaps you could use those.
Sally needs you on her side. I think you might even be able to persuade Tracy and Alia.
I would, yeah. I'll just bamboozle them.
So, yeah, Alia is another one who doesn't want to lose people being able to park on Coronation Street because of speed down.
And also, the other thing is, she needs people to be able to park there to pick their takeaways up. But also, I'm sure she has Deliveroo or Just Eat or some kind of company that takes her takeaways. And so they need somewhere to stop their vehicles to go in and get the takeaways.
Yeah. So this Anti-Sally group also try and get Tim to realise...
Anti-Sally,
Anti-Sally, not Anti-Sally. Anti-Sally group try and get Tim to realise that this could also be bad for streetcars. And
yes, because you can buy a permit as a resident, but as a business owner, it costs more money. And streetcars has got like 5 cars to park.
So Sally later finds out via Tracy that Tim is now fighting against her. So they go in about a bit of an argument at home, basically. And that's how it ends.
One thing that's a bit of a moot point here about Tim and Alia and Tracy arguing against the idea of a permit system is, where are their customers parking at the moment, given that there are no spaces for even people that live there?
Yeah, exactly.
That didn't get raised.
Who knows? I'll tell you what, I've been to the set, and literally just round the corner,
if
you go past the co-op and the Costa, there's a massive car park. So.
Or you could just park at the Imperial War Museum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so Sally and Tim have another argument where he basically accuses her of railroading him and assuming he thinks something, but he actually doesn't. And he even says, if I want to make my mind up, I will listen to other people and then decide. Like, deliberately excluding her as though she's some kind of like brainwashing harpy who convinces him of things that he doesn't actually believe.
So enjoying this story? I can't necessarily get behind a story that's just about parking. It's not that exciting. But having Sally there is brilliant, and also having Fergus there was a great start to the week. And I was really disappointed we didn't get to see him at all on Wednesday and Friday, because we saw more Fergus and learnt about what sort of person Fergus is 10 times more on Monday than we ever had before. He was still, like before this week, the slightly creepy man who just appears in all of Izzy's videos, but now he seems like he's a bit of a massive nerd. Immediately was like, he needs to be friends with Roy. He's a proper, feels like he could be a really interesting caricature-y sort of character.
Stick in the mud.
Stick in the mud. Stickler for the rules or whatever, but you didn't get to see him on Wednesday and Friday.
You say
Sad.
I can't get excited about a story to do with parking, but how can you say that when a lot of the time we argue about a more down-to-earth, realistic approach to covering everyday lives of working class people, and not sort of have a story like that.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very, very true. It's not a sexy, sensational story.
It's going to make the cover of a soap magazine, is it? Like Parking Chaos in Weatherfield.
No.
But it is still a story that's interesting and relatable to lots of people. I'm sure everyone who doesn't have their own private driveway has had an experience, especially in a big city like Manchester or London or any other place, of having havoc when people want to park somewhere. I mean, during lockdown, my friend who lives in Bournemouth near the beach had trouble because people were blocking her neighbours because they just parked anywhere because there was no provision made.
No, it's fine. I mean, if you compare this to stories like Kathy's trolling story, maybe, which was similarly low-key, this certainly feels like it's going to be a lot more enjoyable to watch.
This is more about the characters and interaction between them than it is about parking, which is what Coronation Street should be drawing on as a strength, and they're doing a really good job with this here because everybody's in conflict with one another for logical reasons.
Speaking of interactions between characters, can I just say how happy I am that Aggie is getting a story away from the Baileys? This is what we've been asking for all this time. When Sally said, "Oh, do you want to be in my team?" and Aggie agreed, I was like, yes, brilliant.
Yes, finally.
Has Aggie and Sally ever had a scene before? I don't know, but brilliant, they've got that now, and it is definitely a Sally story and not an Aggie story. But this could be
the burgeoning
just what we want.
Concept of Aggie and Sally uniting, and Sally being sort of like a tornado, whereas Aggie's
She's just a little gust.
Sally is the wind of the tornado, and Aggie is the water that rushes over the stone and wears it down. You know what I mean? Like, I can see her being very gently persuasive, and I can see you having a conversation with her where you don't really see what she's doing, but at the end of it you're like, we should have a permit system for parking on Coronation Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Sally's like very bombastic and in your face and like, sign my petition.
There isn't going to be any clash with anyone that's close to Aggie about the parking, is there? Because Ed doesn't care about...
Well, Ed
probably wants to have the roads cleared because he needs to park his van outside there. So that's going to be a problem if there's other people there. Michael, James, and Ronnie. I don't think
Michael and Grace should just move out.
Oh yeah, well, we'll talk about that a bit later. But anyway, very, very good job having Aggie in this
I love
story.
the quote when Sally and Tim were arguing. I made you write it down when Sally said to Tim, "How dare you use Hillary Clinton against me? You know she's my inspiration."
That was funny. That was great. I also enjoyed the fact that Rosie got a shout out earlier in the week as well, because we hear about Sally's story about Rosie's friends wanting to name their dog.
No. Didn't they? Wasn't it a woman or a couple that wanted to call their child?
Oh yeah, that's it.
But it was the name that had already been taken by somebody's dog, and they were like, "Please rename your dog so that I can call my baby the same name."
That was funny. It was just nice to get a Rosie mention. And yeah, that
I also loved the idea that, like, I don't know, is Rosie a millennial? Or is she is she Gen Z?
She's born in 1990.
Oh, she's still a millennial then. Like, millennials arguing, not about avocado toast, but about whether you're allowed
We've also been seeing a bit of a young Helen Flanagan on our DVDs, haven't we?
Yeah.
She's really good from the off. I think she, a lot of Corrie youngsters, like Sam Aston, Jack P. Shepherd, Alex Bain, people always remember how great they were as young children, but actually Helen Flanagan was really, really decent.
She was
right
great.
From as soon as she started, actually.
One thing I'm wondering is, when you're imagining this argument between Rosie and her friends, are you imagining, as I am, an expat community in Tokyo where they're all a bunch of like white Westerners who have an enclave of everybody's calling their kid, their dog and their child Rebecca? Or are you imagining that she's moved to London with all the other yuppies?
She better still be in Tokyo, otherwise
there's no excuse, is there?
No excuse for not coming up to see our dear old mum. So, Bistro story, Gemma, pass back to you. This was great stuff as well. This is Monday and Wednesday. Leanne and Debbie at the Bistro. There was
a lot of low stakes bickering. Yeah. And this is what I live for. On Monday, Debbie's on the phone to somebody about some kind of accounting oversight, and Leanne and Nick come in for another round of pass the napkin, but at the end neither's really satisfied.
I love how that carried on from last week. Debbie just goes straight for the napkin when she tries to...
I believe this is how you like... So they're still trying to buy into Debbie's business, are Leanne and Nick, and she's holding out for more money. So Debbie and Jenny get regaled by Uncle Ronnie's tale of pocket dialing an angry ex, and Debbie wants business advice from him.
Yeah, this is what gives Debbie the idea,
yeah,
doesn't it?
She's like, that gives me an idea. And then Jenny sees the two of them together, and maybe there's a bit of jealousy brewing here. So Debbie says to Ronnie, look, I'm trying to play hardball with Leanne and Nick, but I need you to do a bit of role play with me. Imagine that you want to buy into the bistro and tell me what you would do with the business to make it great, like it's a job interview. And then she
but you got to make sure that you offer not very much money,
lowball me.
Yeah.
And she dials Leanne and puts her on speakerphone or something, I don't know, so that Ronnie, she can hear what Ronnie and Debbie are saying. So Ronnie's there like pretending that he wants to buy the bistro to play along with what Debbie wants. Meanwhile, Leanne is listening and realises that it's possible that they could lose the bistro to Ronnie. When Debbie ends the phone call before she asks Ronnie whether he actually does want to buy the bistro, and he's like, no way. Jenny's like, I don't like this at all. Jenny starts digging to Debbie after Ronnie leaves about what's going on, and says, are you going into business together? And she's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. Then Leanne says to Nick about what she heard, and she's like, do you know what? I think this is all a bit of a ruse. I think that she's sneaky and lying. And it seems like a bit of a coincidence that she literally phoned me and I heard that very crucial bit of information about them having a discussion. And Nick's like, well, if she's done that and set that up, she must be really desperate. So they go to the bistro together, and Leanne plays her back and says, Debbie, I heard your pocket dial and your conversation with Ronnie. So I think that seeing as how Ronnie really wants to join the business, and he's got all these ideas and he's desperate to get into business with you, that you guys should just do it. Don't forget about me and Nick, we're not interested anymore. And she's like, oh no, actually, Leanne, I would really value your expertise, as you and Nick have run the place before. And Leanne says, oh no, Nick and I have actually found this really cool cafe in the Northern Quarter. And David's like, no. How about I give it to you for $5,000 less than we originally agreed? And so I think they agree to go in together. Jenny then talks to Ronnie about his chat with Debbie, and
she's like super jealous of Ronnie maybe giving the glad eye to another woman,
attention.
Which, as I'm sure our listeners can imagine, was making my blood boil on Monday. I've kind of only just come down from her sleeping with him many months ago, but just seeing her getting mad at Ronnie sitting with Debbie is just like, no, Jenny, stop it. Because it's been so long, I was kind of half thinking, maybe Jenny and Ronnie aren't going to get together, you know? Maybe that was just me being paranoid and worried about it. And this week it's like, oh no, it's going to go back to this again.
It's not paranoid if they really are shagging.
Oh.
Leanne comes in and says to Ronnie, I saw right through you and your scheme. And he has no idea what she is talking about. Debbie comes in and Leanne confronts her and says, this was all a big lie, wasn't it? You and Ronnie's phone call. And I love Debbie. She's like, well, can't blame me for trying. She's totally up front. She doesn't pretend. Leanne says, well, guess what? You admit you were lying. So was I. There is no cafe bar in the Northern Quarter. Ha ha ha. Which is a great way to begin a business relationship. Debbie invites Ronnie for a drink and he says, no, thank you. I'm not interested. Jenny is really pleased about this. Michael's fuming. Ronnie and Debbie admit that they enjoyed each other's company earlier.
And then I was like, okay, maybe they will get together.
And then she invites him for pie and chips at the bistro, and he says, I've got my eye on someone else.
Oh, playing with me, Coronation Street.
Well,
don't do it.
Can I say that this feels very much like the way Titanic was gliding so slowly and elegantly towards that iceberg. Like it's inevitable, but it's happening so slowly.
I think that there is potential here in a Jenny versus Debbie fighting for Ronnie's affections, which actually could be quite fun.
Yes, that could be good, because I bloody love Debbie.
And Sally and Matthews could do a bang-up job at that. I would be very happy to see that.
Very fiery. Ice and fire.
It is fire and ice. Yeah. The Song of Ice and Fire, isn't it? Those two fighting over
shot.
Ronnie. And if Debbie ends up winning him at the end, even better. Because she's obviously
I don't see any
interested.
chemistry between them. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought there was. I thought that there was.
I don't
and
see
she's
it.
obviously interested in Ronnie. Otherwise, she
There's
wouldn't have
more
tried
of a
proposition.
spark. I know you don't like it, but I think the reason you don't like it is because you can see there is a bit of a spark between
I'm not going to
Jenny
admit
and
it.
Ronnie.
Not going to admit it. I will admit that maybe I don't hate Ronnie quite so much, and if he hasn't been going out with Jenny, maybe I wouldn't mind him. He is a massive cheesemeister and a bit of a schmoozer and a slime
so
ball.
are you.
But I know. So I think I wouldn't mind him if he hadn't split up my Jenny and Johnny.
Oh,
But yeah, having those two, that would be worth it.
Michael, let me continue to
brilliant
tell you
together.
about Leanne's incredible knowledge of the fish market.
This is another bad.
This was
That's
one of the
where you
most-
got your head.
I got really mad about this. I was
What was
Googling.
worse, this or the Italian takeaway?
I was Googling, how can you tell the difference between pollock and cod? Right, on Wednesday, and also, right, okay. On Wednesday, Nick is nervous about the fact that they're already starting to work at the bistro. Like, the next day, they're just jumping into taking management of the bistro because of this argument with Debbie. And Leanne's like, don't worry about it, I'll be on my best behaviour, it will be fine. At the bistro, they're looking at the menus, and Debbie and Leanne have an incredibly mature and kind of detached conversation about what they think the menu should be and what changes should be made.
Well,
And
some there's a mixture, isn't there? Sometimes
Agreements,
like it's Leanne and Debbie
disagreements.
agree and Nick disagrees. Sometimes Leanne and Nick agree and Debbie disagrees.
but they in the end they come to an agreement about
Whatever
everyone
they
gets their
are, don't
input,
they? Yeah.
and everyone's listened to, and they come to they come to an agreement about their different thoughts about what kind of stuff should be on the menu or not.
I don't
And-
think that. I think it's right that Nick and Leanne want to put some kind of stamp on it, but they can't just expect to walk in there and like Alex Polizzi and change the whole menu of everything.
Yeah, it's not what's it called? Hotel inspector,
Yeah.
the bistro inspector.
I suppose I should have just referred to Hell's Kitchen more. That's probably would have been
That's
closer.
more international, isn't it? So
Not Hell's Kitchen. What's it called?
it's Hell's Kitchen, isn't it?
No, it's not. What's the Gordon Ramsay one
Gordon
called?
Ramsay shouts at you.
Yeah, that's the one.
Gordon Ramsay's
Kitchen
That's
Nightmares.
it.
Yeah.
In England, he's like, "Oh dear, you shouldn't do this." In America, he's like, "You stupid knobhead." Oh, right. So, Sarah and Adam somehow can look at a piece of fish that's supposed to be cod and say, "This colour is wrong. It was a bit weird." So she goes to the back and checks. Does Leanne? She picks up the packet or something
Yeah, she goes to the freezer, doesn't
and
she?
says, "This isn't cod. It's pollock. The fish man has pulled a fast one on us."
So I don't even like fish, so I wouldn't have a clue. I don't know what I'm talking about here. Are pollock and cod fairly distinguishable, or
No.
are they pretty much identical?
Like, you can tell the difference if you look at the fish, and you can tell the difference if there's a label that says pollock instead of cod.
Well, actually, there clearly wasn't here because
I
it
think
was.
cod is generally more expensive, but pollock is sort of a white. If it's a firm fleshed white fish,
Well, Leanne is an expert.
you
at
can't.
this.
I find them. It's unbelievable that Sarah and Adam could look at a piece of pollock and go, "This is pollock."
Would
and
you
not
say
cod."
that there's something somewhat fishy
It
about
was,
this
the whole
storyline
thing
development?
was fishy?
Load of pollocks.
Yeah. So
Flipping pollock. I did roll my eyes and sigh a little bit
you
about
would
them.
have
so.
delighted yourself if you'd come up with this.
I like a good pun, but
Yes, you do.
But it was barely a year since we had Ken Barlow with Norris at Stillwaters talking about Jackson Pollocks and saying, "Oh, Norris, well, that's Pollocks," and people on Twitter going, "Oh, did Ken just say, you know what? I thought you said that was he just said Pollocks. Isn't Pollocks a funny word?" And then they're getting it again. It's lazy.
Well, this was really, it didn't really matter, but it was just a way for Leanne and Debbie to cement their working partnership and make Debbie realise she needed Leanne's expertise and to make her realise that Leanne was on her side, because she said, "You've been had, the fishman's a liar."
I enjoyed they were having a bit of an argument. They were getting angry about it, weren't they,
Yeah.
outside in the bistro, and then Nick comes in and thinks
Yeah, they're going,
that-
"I can't believe this has happened. Yes, this is the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened. wow, this is what a bunch of rubbish or whatever, and it sounds like they're arguing at one another, but actually they're both united against someone else. So Nick immediately thinks that they're united against one another, but
so
no.
they haul the fish man in, give him a good dressing down, and he goes away with his tail between his legs.
I honestly think that this is a very common thing to happen, though, in the
Not under
I'm
Leanne's
fairly
watch.
sure that at some point you have to like genetically test some fish to see. Isn't there also a scandal in America where they say that a certain very famous chain of sandwich franchises has a tuna sandwich which doesn't contain any tuna whatsoever? Has anybody else heard this rumour?
I don't know
So, you know, if they can get away with it, I think that the Bistro can get away with selling pollock. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you're paying extra for a certain type of fish and they give you a different sort of fish, even if it looks the same, it's naughty, isn't it?
Yes.
But luckily for them, he gives them some cheap langoustines.
Yes. So this was
Which
great.
one he loves.
He does. This was great, this story this week. Having these two fiery women against each other but then uniting was just perfect. And I really was happy to see Leanne with a bit of a spark, a bit of a twinkle in her eye. I don't blame her for being down after Ollie's death and everything and all the drugs.
Who?
But
Oh, I thought it was Ronnie.
don't say who. I know she's not Michelle or anything, but you will still get a very stern talking.
You'll get an argument.
I mean, look what happened with Imran today.
I know.
But yeah, it was it was brilliant. I loved Leanne on Wednesday's episode. Not moving on from Ollie, but showing that there is life, there is spark, there is and all that after this tragedy. Very, very happy, and I was happy to see that it wasn't just them bitching at each other and being nasty. Now that still might come. But I think I'd rather see them united in a powerhouse team of strong, spunky women, with Nick being the one in between.
I know, but that's
more fun
that's
to me.
dangerous then for Nick's character. You know, being the sort of the donkey that gets kicked.
I don't mind that.
I think this has got a lot of potential. I think it's. I think the conflict is always more interesting than harmony. So. Who knows what will happen here?
It was great. The Bistro, like we said last week, has been meandering this past. Well, even ever since since Robert died, really, because we didn't see a whole lot of it, even when Ray was in charge.
On behalf of all the residents of Coronation Street, Robert who?
Thank you. Yeah, so very, very good. Also, what's the other point I was going to make? Oh,
Nick.
No.
Debbie.
Don't throw things at me.
Okay.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Never mind.
Yeah, no, it's gone.
If you think about it, you can tell me.
Yeah.
Deep Impact.
Is this back to me again? Oh no, it was here. No, it's gone again. Never mind. Okay, this was fantastic. Oh no, what I was going to say, and this story is the same. These are the two stories that I would have liked to have carried on into Friday, because I was really, really excited by both of them. And then when the Michael stuff and even the Imran and Toya stuff come in on Friday, I was like, no, I don't need that. I want more of this, because Brian Packham reminded me of why I absolutely love this character in the beginning this week. Peter Gunn played a blinder.
No slouch as
he
an
really
actor.
isn't. He's just not been given the
role
material
of
to get
Brian
his teeth into
does
until
not
now.
trouble him at all as far as stretching his range.
No.
Except for Wednesday's episode, when
Yeah.
we finally got a very good demonstration for Peter Gunn's reel as to why he is.
This is going to go on the reel. You're right. So it was mostly about Abby, of course. So she's still feeling very mixed up about this victim impact statement that she needs to write. No, so it's Kevin's the one. Sorry, at the beginning of the episode that says you need to write a victim impact statement, which is just where you stand up at the court and say, "Oh,
I didn't know we had this in this country," but yeah, it's basically. After I thought in America, look, this is really bad. I know more about the American system than I do about the UK one. But I believe in America, it's used after the trial has finished, but before the sentencing, to explain the impact on the victims. So I don't know where this is going to be used in this trial or how we use them in this country. But I thought this was a really good demonstration of how people who are not necessarily confident in their education get sort of tested sometimes by a very literate upper class of kind of intellectual, you know, people that are in charge of everything assume a certain level of what's the word, literacy, and it's not really, I don't really mean to diminish her, but she doesn't feel confident.
She got her English GCSE last year.
But like, I'm talking about emotional literacy and translating that into words, and it obviously has no bearing on her emotional feelings about the situation. But I could probably write a really good victim impact statement about how I feel about the fact that Seb got kicked to death and I had to watch it, better than Abby might be able to do. But that doesn't mean that it affected me more than Abby did. But somehow we expect people to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And it makes me think that there should be some kind of like court liaison. If we're expecting people to put this together, why does nobody help?
I think she just needs to load up, you know, Word 97, start to write it, and then a little clippy comes up and says, "It looks like you're trying to write a victim impact statement here. Would you like some help?"
Yes, please.
So anyway, she doesn't need a clippy because she's got Brian Packham to help her.
Same thing. Just as irritating.
She tries to write something herself, but she just gets stressed out and storms out and gets into an argument with Imran. I don't know why I separated this story out from the Imran and Toya stuff later, because it kind of was the same story. It was just minus Abby and Brian, wasn't it, really?
Never mind.
So Imran, who has been working jolly hard, gets both barrels from Abby, who's like, "Oh, she said, I hope you rot in hell with Kelly by your side," because she still wants to put the blame on anyone. She doesn't. She knows that Kelly was involved, and the fact that Imran is defending her
Can I tell you
doesn't fly
something?
with her.
This is making me nervous.
Why?
The fact that everybody is so down on Kelly and certain that it was her that did it makes me think it wasn't her now. Even though,
I don't think
personally, I'm completely convinced there's no way she is not guilty of being involved in Seb's death.
She really was, but
the fact that they're going, "Oh, look at poor Imran, he's working really hard and he's going against, like, he's so brave, he's going against all the people that are telling him he's wrong because he believes in what he's doing and it's morally right."
It's odd because they must have known all along that this is where the story was eventually going to end up going, but they really, really did make it look like she played a fairly active part in Seb's death at the time, didn't they? And having the laughing and we didn't see her pulling Corrie off of him.
It kind of bothers me because, like, one of the basic tenets that we learned from the last century and the horrible things that happened was that for a good person to stand by and watch evil happen is just as bad as evil happening in itself. But yet we're supposed to think that Kelly is innocent because she didn't actually kick Seb, but she just stood there and watched. And she couldn't do anything about it.
She stood and watched for a little bit and then apparently pulled Corrie off. But I don't know. Anyway, Look,
I can't wait to actually find out what really happened. But I am with Abby and Sally, and who else was it?
Well, Leanne, yeah.
Here on the whole, I have no sympathy. But I said before on the show that in order for justice to be done, you have to have a vigorous and comprehensive defence of even the most awful people. Otherwise, it you know, you could end up with a mistrial and then you get the person who gets convicted gets off scot-free.
I don't blame Imran for doing what he can to protect Ellie. It's his job, and it's his foster daughter.
Yeah, but listen,
he's kind of morally obliged almost to it to defend her.
If you believe in justice and the system, you have to support a defence, a proper defence, because if you don't, it comes back to bite you in the bum. Whether or not everybody agrees that this person definitely did it, if they're pleading not guilty, they have to give as good a defence as they possibly can, because the system is set up to give a fair trial to everybody. And if the person doesn't get a fair trial, they could eventually get out on a technicality. That's not what anybody wants.
No. So the end of Monday's episode is when Brian offers to help Abby out with her statement, and when that came along, I held my hands up and I thought, no, don't bring Brian into this. He'll spoil it. He'll ruin it. He'll make it funny or stupid or buffoonish or anything. But boy, was I wrong, because Wednesday we only have a couple of scenes, don't we?
Well done.
It was all it needed was what it had, which was Abby first reading her first draft of it.
I thought
which
this was so well done.
It was
It
her
was
raw
about vengeance, wasn't
yeah,
it?
it's a raw venting feelings about how much she hates Corrie and Kelly
Yes.
and the other nameless people, but really those two are the main
And
ones.
saying they were animals and they can't get away with it and everything.
And it was a fantastically raw and emotional speech. But Brian says this isn't really what the victim's impact statement should be.
Yes.
It's not about Corrie and Kelly. It should be more about how it's affected you. And she tries to explain, but just starts breaking down in tears. And he's like, you just tell me what you think and I'll jot it down and everything. And then the actual scene where we hear what she said wasn't Abby that was saying it. It was Brian, and it was brilliant.
He rose
It's
to
an
the
amazing
occasion.
speech written by whoever was the script writer of the day. But it was so touching, and the way that he was reading it, he was breaking up, wasn't he? He couldn't.
Yeah.
He was reading a bit and then sort of pausing for a breath.
It wasn't overdone.
No, it wasn't
And
overdone.
Sometimes
it was perfect.
when Corrie wants somebody to do something but do it incorrectly the first time, they make it really comically bad. But they gave 100% to Abby's first speech, which was good, but it wasn't what she was supposed to be doing. But it made perfect sense that is what she would write. Because Abby hasn't really want to focus on her own grief because she's so caught up in it. She'd rather turn that into action, and so her action is, get the people that did it and punish them.
Yeah.
And then having it read by Brian shouldn't work because it's not his words. But Peter Gunn performed it.
Yeah, you could believe it
so
was.
well.
It was spot on.
And Sally Carman in that scene too as Abby just kind of...
Yeah, she didn't say anything. She was just there
so well
listening
done.
and sobbing at the right moments. It was brilliant. It really, really took me by surprise, that did.
But we both said to each other after the episode, didn't we?
What?
The fact that we've heard this victim impact statement
Oh, yeah.
makes us both think that this is not going to be said again.
No, we're not going to hear Abby saying this in court, I don't
think we will.
Because it won't have the same impact.
Because you already heard
it. It would need to have greater impact than it did here, and it couldn't.
Not really, no. I can't see how it could do.
So either something's going to happen that stops her being able to have the chance to say it, or we're just going to not have the scene and assume that it went fine.
Yeah.
I don't know, but...
It's an interesting choice, which makes me wonder where the story's going.
Yeah, I'm really excited now that this is ramping up. I think the fact that this has happened and we've now going into this Toya and Imran bit, it feels like right, this story is happening now.
Yeah.
The trial is imminent.
The trial of the century, part 5.
But it's not even like the Tyrone and Fizz one is going on pause, is it? Because this whole snoggeroo that happened in today's episode means that they can't park this story for a little bit. This is going to have to keep going on. So potentially, at late August, early September, we could have these two A stories of the year running parallel to each other and at the same time. Fantastic. I mean, it is the same story, even though I've got it separated in my notes here. But
it follows on Friday. So those 2 days we just talked about were Monday and Wednesday. And then on Friday...
Yeah. So Imran's been working all night there. So Toya finds him asleep at his desk in the office. She taps nicely on the glass to wake him up. Yeah, it's probably not the first time that she's seen him snoozing across that desk, after she's given him a good rogering on it.
That's enough.
He's like, has a bit of a nap.
She says, would you like to have a nice lunch at the Bistro? I've got an inside track because my sister owns the joint.
Yeah, and he just can't switch off about this court case. And he's convinced that Kelly's innocent, and Leanne comes over. And I was kind of caught off guard a little bit by the fact that she was... so anti-Imran on this. You'd have thought it might have come out before now.
You would have thought you would have kept your mouth shut as well about your sister's boyfriend.
Yeah, but...
I can't imagine what would drive me to have a go at your sister's boyfriend. Like, maybe if he was, war profiteering or, I don't know, bumping up the price of insulin, I might say something.
It makes sense, though, that because, she's lost her son as well, that she would empathise with Abby quite a lot. Well, I mean, you can make the link there, can't you?
Well, everybody in the scene did.
Yeah. So Imran starts having a massive Imrant. It's been a while since we've had an Imrant, so I do enjoy them.
So hilarious.
He's like, just because Oliver died, I can't remember exactly what he said. It's like, just because Oliver died, it doesn't mean you're an expert on murder. And I don't think
she was... Where did that come from?
How very dare you?
I I couldn't believe
Do
that.
you know who I am?
Finally,
Leanne
someone
Batterton,
tells Leanne to shut
grieving
up,
mother of
dog.
the parish.
I could believe this. If I was having my lunch in the bistro, I would have to just double check to make sure I hadn't bought dinner and a show here. Is this some kind of like murder mystery thing that I've stumbled upon? So I think it was Toya that did it.
Debbie's glad
too
that
innocent.
Leanne has bought into this now.
She's like, I don't want to get involved in this drama.
Yeah, poor Toya, she's just sitting there looking very awkward, not knowing who do I back up here, my boyfriend or my sister.
But
and
why
just
would you
nobody
back up your sister? Because she just out of nowhere starts having a go at Imran.
Yeah.
Like, mind your own business and ask them what they want for dinner.
Yeah,
You don't need to be asking or telling somebody whether they're right or wrong.
It is very much in Leanne's personality to do it, but she should have kept
keep you in trap
a trap shut in this. So Toya later kind of creeps back to the office just to check is Imran okay, but he's like, I'm on the phone to somebody, it's very important.
Yeah.
I found that completely unbelievable because from the past 6 months, our experience is that solicitors don't phone up people.
No, and don't care and don't have anything important. Always ready to drop everything at any point to do anything that isn't work.
Once this house is out the way, we could rant. We could, give an Imran style rant about how awful our solicitor has been.
Literally going to lodge a complaint.
We are going to lodge a complaint against our solicitors, but we're going to wait until we move
until we've moved.
Because we don't want him to say screw you then.
To use the word incompetent would be rude to people that are incompetent.
Oh my gosh, it's been terrible.
Okay, right. So
in fact, the whole of this story is unbelievable because Imran seems to be working very, very hard, and I
don't
believe that he cares. Yeah, I don't believe that solicitors.
Criminal.
Never mind Daniel and his half a day prep to start his NQT year. Yeah. This Imran working hard was the most unbelievable bit about this.
I think it's a bit different when it's somebody having to go to prison versus conveyancing. Anyway, he has a go and says, you didn't even stand up for me because you're not usually short of things to say.
Yeah, so rude. She goes off very hurt, but then they have a nice makeup scene, thankfully, at the end.
I love this. I love how they can't be mad at each other because he comes home and she's there like moodily with a glass of wine listening to, I don't even know what music that was, like being in a huff with him, and like within 5 seconds they're both like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
I'm
nice.
Sorry, me too.
Yeah, but Toya offers a nice night in with him and watching whatever she wants on the telly.
And he can't.
But he can't because he's got to do his work.
But to be fair, she offered him hummus.
Did she?
What? She offered him like, I don't know,
dripping bloody steak
or some kind of like petit saucisson.
Offer herself.
Would you like
covered in hummus?
Would you like a shag on the sofa? Sorry, love, I'm busy. He wouldn't have said that, would he?
Oh,
he would have been like, all right, 5 minutes. And then I'm back to it.
We've said before that I can't deal with Toya and Imran splitting up this year. I've already had my Jenny and Johnny. I've always had my Fizz and Tyrone.
I know.
It's bad for my mental health if these two split up. It's like they're gunning for me.
It's like mummy and daddy getting divorced.
So it was nice that they did have that makeup scene, but she looked slightly upset at the fact that he turned down her nice offer.
I'm watching this myself here going, join the club, Toya. What's that?
I thought that you might empathise with Toya in this.
Your husband/boyfriend's too busy working in the evening to pay you attention. Well, join the club. Because this is this just seems to be...
I was definitely Imran in this situation.
A short period of time in which he doesn't want to eat hummus with her. You never want to eat hummus with
me. Do you think that they're going to go down the route of instability in their Battersby household?
I think this is
I really hope they don't.
I honestly think this is just a plot device to sort of emphasise the fact that Imran is sort of the lone moral voice on the street who is willing to entertain the fact that Kelly might not actually be the person who perpetrated this crime. And I think we're supposed to now view her and Imran as the underdogs. Therefore, I'm almost certain that it's going to turn out to have actually just been Corrie who did this, and she somehow is a completely innocent bystander, which I don't buy. Yeah,
it'd be very interesting to hear what happens. Because Kelly's been having flashbacks, as the last we heard about, hasn't she?
She can't actually remember
herself. No.
what happened, which is
I
convenient
don't know
for
how
the plot.
I don't know how the characters are going to reveal it, but I guess we'll see. No, I'm just being a bit
Because
of a...
the thing is, the way it was depicted was that Nina was chased away from the scene. So the only people who witnessed what happened were
Corrie and Kelly.
and Seb, who is dead. So unless Seb's going to come back as a ghost and tell everybody in the courtroom, I don't see how we're actually going to work out how this happened.
Literally, what we saw was
Nina
Seb on the
wasn't
floor,
there.
and there was a good solid 5 to 10 seconds of kicking,
Unless
and
Nina
Kelly
came
laughing.
back.
No, she didn't. She should have said by now.
Well, she doesn't remember. I think that would be weak if that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just being very, very, very pessimistic about Imran and Toya, and I think that this isn't going to be the first time that Toya's going to have her nose put up out of joint and come second place to Imran's work. And although it's very honourable of him to do it, literally, if they split up, I'm going to be so bloody mad. I'm going to be fuming.
So whose fault would it be if they split up?
What? As in characters or just writers and producers and storyliners?
Characters.
Well, Kelly's for being involved in it.
I'm really interested in this because, honestly, if we were to ever get divorced, it would be because you spend so much of your time working. And
it would be Imran's fault.
Right,
he
so
really
are
should
you
have been
admitting that you
Friday
should work
night.
too hard?
Friday night. He's
It's
not going to solve
podcasting.
anything. He should have said, "I'm going to park that for the moment."
And do a podcast with you about your favourite TV show.
I don't even know how hard is it. What work does he need to do?
Michael, you're such an idiot. This is what
Especially
people
if
say
nobody
to
knows
you.
what's going
This is
on.
what people say to you. Oh, how hard is it? It's not even complicated. It's like, the history and pointing at a map to say which part of England is the south.
He's had this case for a long time.
They said already that he doesn't have the money to hire an extra person to help.
Okay.
So it'd be like you not having a TA.
His office helper Leanne is now dishing out
Against
langoustines. Yeah. Okay.
What work is he doing?
I
if you
don't-
can't comprehend.
I'm trepidatious about this story, but definitely looking forward to it carrying on next week. Fingers crossed. I assume it's going to carry on next week.
Maybe.
Finally, Gemma, we have our vicars in a tryst. What's going on with Grace and Michael?
Oh, yeah. So James is still appealing about his arrest, but he hasn't got anything back about it. And Grace and Michael and James are all in the front room and getting on each other's nerves because she's fed up with living there. She wants to move out. James wants them to move. Ronnie and Michael are in the bistro later, and Ronnie says, look, you need to decide whether or not you want to be with Grace. Because saying that you want... And he says... Well, the most important thing to me, Michael, is my child, Glory. And it seems to make sense to me that for her, the best thing to be is that if me and Grace were together. And Ronnie says, well, it's not really the best thing for her if you don't want to be with Grace. And he says, I don't really think I want to be with Grace then. And Glory is my main thing. And that's it.
That is it. And I don't think any of this was necessary. All of those scenes, apart from the moving out bit maybe, we'd seen it before. It had been played out in weeks before.
But I'm worried
Ronnie
about
had
Grace.
said to
I quite
Michael,
like her. I just don't like
we're
her.
going to like Grace
She has
more.
very problematic history.
She does. Ronnie had already told Michael he needs to decide, or somebody had already told Michael he needs to decide. So the whole stuff at the bistro today was, I think, completely unnecessary, apart from to remind us what happened last time. They could have done that on Monday. I'd rather that we'd had more Bistro and Leanne or Abby or something. This is the weak link.
Michael and Tyrone are both two nice guys who are acting like a leaf in a river, where they are being led wherever the current takes them as though they have no agency of their own. They have to decide what it is that they want. They can't keep playing and trying to please everybody and acting like they're being nice because they're not. Going along with what everybody else wants of you is not being nice. It's being weak and causing more problems down the line. Because he's stringing Grace along.
Yeah. And I think if she finds out, her psychopathic side might rise to the surface again. I forgot. I've written down here as well. There was also another one scene of a story that I thought was going to turn into something. But Sarah Lou says to Adam that she wants to maybe try for a baby this week, doesn't she? So you can have baby 2 for Sarah Lou coming soon.
Baby 3. This will be a third baby.
Billy. Yes, lest we forget.
Harry.
What?
Harry Platt.
Why? Oh, yeah, Harry.
Yeah, that's her baby too,
It is, yes.
So she's got 3, this will be a third baby.
Yeah, but...
She's got 2 babies, that would be her second baby.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, she's got a grown-up child, and she's got a baby.
Oh, I forgot about Bethany. I totally forgot that Bethany existed. Baby 3 for Sarah Louise, and also Billy, so this is actually the 4th child that she's been pregnant with. I forget.
You know what? It's hard to keep track.
It is. We have only literally just watched this as well, haven't we?
Let's not.
On the DVDs. Okay, fine. So, I just found it quite fascinating that Sarah Louise and Adam had some scenes together this week. Like, I said, that's a bit of a novelty, isn't it?
I also found it weird, and I don't know, perhaps it's obviously a reflection of our bizarre relationship that we have, that she says, I want a baby, and his response is, oh, that's an intriguing prospect. Not like, God, that's a completely life-altering suggestion that you're making. That requires me to think about this. And maybe he's just going, well, I'm a man. It wouldn't involve me whatsoever.
I think he is. He seems
Have
like
as
the sort.
many kids as you want and knock yourself out, love.
Well, this is what happened with his dad, doesn't it? This was Mike and Susan, because Mike wanted Susan to have a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
was like,
exactly
and you can
the
look
right
after
way of
her.
saying it, right, Michael, as well. Like, I want you to have a child, but I will
Mike
finance.
was like, Susan, I don't want you to work. I want, yeah. Oh, what was it, Mike that wanted, or was it Susan that wanted a baby? I can't.
No, he wanted her to have a baby, and she didn't, I think. And then
Yeah,
she did
that's
anyway.
right, that's right. Yeah, she did anyway, and then she had an abortion, and then it turned out she didn't, and that's how we got Adam.
And maybe the history will repeat itself.
Yeah, maybe. So, that is it for the week. And I still stand by the fact that I thought on the whole it was a very strong week. Just let down a little bit on Friday. There were some fantastic scenes this week. I loved the Fizz and Tyrone together. Obviously the kiss was the icing on the cake for me. All the tension in the build up to the trial was amazing. Tyrone reporting hope. I didn't know that was going to happen. I loved it.
Yeah.
Evelyn was brilliant. Fizz can do no wrong, even when she clearly is doing wrong, and saying and confessing to a crime she didn't commit just to spare Hope help that she needs. I love her. I thought that Daisy getting a bit of characterisation was very overdue and very much needed this week. Nice to have more Ryan in it. Sally, brilliant on the campaign trail. I loved her little thing around the table with Aggie. Debbie, Leanne, perfect partnership at the Bistro. Abby and Brian, brilliant scene there. And we actually got Imran and Toya in scenes together, which is a bit of a rare thing as well. Hopefully a sign of more to come. Wasn't too sure. Well, I was very sure that I didn't like the insinuation that Jenny still is holding a court torch for Ronnie. And like I said, I'm a bit pessimistic about the future for Imran and Toya. But
no.
Good week.
I wanted to say one thing about the Sally and Aggie scene about them running around the table together. Yes. It felt to me as though Corrie was confident in the fact that they were lifting restrictions on how far away actors could be. So they felt confident enough to make fun of... That's what it felt like. It felt like a scene making fun of social distancing.
It did a bit.
And it felt like they were finally in a place where they could say, we can laugh about this because it's in the past.
I mean, we even in the Rovers this week, we seem to have more characters in. Like, there were some background drinkers in one scene. Not many.
But enough to keep Jenny's tills ringing.
Enough to make me go, ooh, are they moving away? I mean, we are past Freedom Day. But I don't know when some of this was filmed, and it could be a sign of things to come because Corrie desperately needs to get back to normal
Boris
from a viewer's
Johnson
point of view.
Declares, the legal.
Oh yeah, I know.
There's two different things. There's the legal requirements. There's also health and safety regulations and a duty of care to your employees, which I would hope that ITV. Would take
absolutely. That's most important.
And it's not just a case of, all of our staff are double jabbed, healthy and, ready to go. They've got a range of different people with different health needs and probably not everybody's double jabbed because they've got a lot of young people who aren't necessarily have had their jabs yet.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not in a rush. It doesn't bother me. I don't really mind.
It's bothering me a little bit more now.
It doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, I am going to give this story
This week.
This week, sorry.
I'm intrigued. I can't wait to hear what you're going to give it.
I'm going to give it 4. 4, yeah. 4. What should I give it for, though?
So many good ones.
I mean, Step Skanks is probably the easy, obvious one, isn't it? It's quite a good one. I'm going to give it 4 slightly confused catalogue models out of 5, which is, I can't remember who got... I've written that quote down, but I can't remember who it was.
A lot of these I don't recognise when we come back to them. I agree with you. I think this is a 4 week, and I want to give it...
Could have been 4.5, but it wasn't.
4 Ponzi coffees and a grazing board, which was what Leanne said that they were going to sell in their posh Northern Quarter cafe.
Fine. Character of the week is a really tough one, because although the best scene of the week to me was probably the Abby and Brian one. I don't know whether they've done enough. I don't know whether they were important enough players in the week to get character of the week.
No, they weren't even in
I'd love
B
to be able
story.
to. I don't think Brian has ever, been character of the week.
I don't see this being the start of his.
No, I don't at all. I really don't at all.
Either.
But thank you, Coronation Street, for
Whoever
giving him the opportunity.
The other the question is also, and I wonder about this, whether, because we know in the past actors have been swapped out of scenes because the person who was supposed to be doing it wasn't available. I find Brian to be such an odd choice that I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out he was a last minute substitution.
No, I don't.
But it does make sense logically from the perspective that he helped her with her English.
Yeah, I think that.
Well, I'm just saying. I think it's worth pointing out sometimes. Yeah. And if that were the case, which I'm not saying at all, I don't know. If that were the case, it's even more amazing.
Yeah. Right. But even, I think I don't want to necessarily give it to anyone in the Tyrone and Fizz story, because both characters were flawed, and Wally's exactly just right in their own ways. Hope didn't actually have a whole load to do this week. Evelyn was great, but I don't think this was enough of a Evelyn's central week to make it her.
It's a really tough one because
Leanne and Debbie were both great, but again, minor characters, and I can't give it to Leanne after having a go at Imran today.
I think I'll give it to Debbie because I really liked her chancing everything with this.
That was
phone
really
call,
good.
And then admitting it completely, unashamedly.
I love that.
I did that. It was me. I'd do it again if I had the chance. And I liked the play between Leanne and Debbie, where they were sort of being quite mature with each other and able to sort of negotiate a professional exchange without...
Yeah. You know what? There's so many here that because the Tyrone and Fizz story dominated, most everything else were kind of bit parts to the week. Like, do I give it to Sally because she was great? Do I give it to Fergus because he was good on Monday? I can't.
I think Sally's a pretty strong contender.
I'm going to give it to Brian. I am going to give it to Brian.
Okay.
He had like 3 scenes, but
he was great.
He was so amazing. And if anybody at Corrie is listening and is hearing me awarding Brian Character of the Week for you giving him that to do, and maybe he gets more opportunity to do something like that.
Can I just say, I thought this was brilliant. He was perfect. He did a great job. But like I said before, I've said this before about other comedy characters that have been given serious stuff to do. Don't make the mistake of thinking because the actor can pull it off that is what we want from the character. And they've made this mistake with Mary and Emma, where they've given them stuff that the actor can rise to, but not what we want from either of these characters. They gave Emma a dead dad, a dead dog. And what else did you add? I can't remember.
Well, you should have 2 dead dogs, your own dead dog and Ken's dead dog.
And a nearly dead boyfriend in Curtis.
Oh yeah, what's going on there? That's the other thing about the Bistro, because so far Curtis and Danny are the only other main characters that are working at the Bistro, and neither of them are anything. So maybe now we've got Leanne and Nick working there, we'll get a bit of development of characters for those two. Possibly.
Maybe.
No, I think I don't agree with that comparison, because we had Emma as a comedy character that's been given this serious material, and who was the other person that you said? Mary. But I think that, especially in Emma's case, she was very, very good at being funny, and it's kind of a shame that she's been given a bit more serious stuff to do now. Brian, at the moment, though, I don't think is necessarily that great at being funny.
I understand
used
what
to
you're saying.
love Brian in his first
They've waned
stint.
somewhat.
And when he was with the
giving
John
him
Stape
good
stuff
scripts.
10 years ago, when he was with Julie, he was one of my favourites. And I was so excited when I heard that
When
Peter Gunn was
Julie
coming back.
and Brian left, I was devastated because
Yeah.
they were great.
Yeah, but since he's come back, however long it was, 5 years,
Blimey.
they've not quite recaptured what was great about Brian. And this week wasn't it. I can't remember, it's been so long now, about why I like Brian
This
so
wasn't
much
a
back then.
typified Brian. This
No.
wasn't like a Brian-centric scene.
No, so I'd rather see more of... So this is what I'm looking and saying, yes, you've given him serious stuff and I like it, whereas with Emma it's like, oh, you're giving us serious stuff and oh, actually it's really, really good, but I don't want more of that. I'd rather have more of this sort of stuff than Brian, than the sort of buffoonish silliness that he's been getting.
I get you.
The other thing with Brian this year, my two favourite Brian moments of this year was this, and the time when he tells Kathy he loves her after he goes and gets her from her hidey hole in Yasmin's house, and they have a proper serious heart-to-heart, and that was lovely.
What are they doing with Brian? Are they going to make him a serious character?
I don't have any confidence that they are.
The thing is, it gets to a certain stage in Coronation Street where, as a man, once you get past a certain age, you become a buffoon.
Yeah, well, it's happened to Steve, it's happening to Tim, and it's
Dev.
yeah, Dev's still
Norris.
pulling it off masterfully there. Tell you what, if this week had maybe swapped out...
Even Ken to a certain extent.
I think if this week had swapped out the Daisy story, I'm going to say, for some Alahan stuff, that would have been
More
the perfect
Alahan.
week. There's nothing particularly wrong with the Daisy thing, and as like I said, giving her character was good, but if this had Asher and Ardy and Dev in a story, mwah,
I'm
loved
an
it.
Alahan head.